Padraig Paudcast. My own name is Padraig Cronin, and I'm joined by a very special guest today who I'm privileged to have here for you today. He's been in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, 51st Date, Mean Machine, a few deleted scenes in Game of Thrones, which we will come to later on. But more importantly than that, he's a very, very good friend and close friend of mine, Jake Abraham. Jake, thanks a million for coming on the show today, the very first guest. How does it feel?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Padraig. I wish you all success with it.
Thanks a million, man. You're looking well.
Thank you.
Makeup's on and all that, yeah?
Yeah, I've got my makeup team in here in the back there.
Good stuff. Yeah, Jill did a couple of hours with me as well there, doing colours and everything, so happy out.
Well, she's good. She must be good.
Were you watching the football earlier?
Oh, God. At what point did you turn off?
Well, about half time, because I was getting ready for this, but I had a feeling it was going to end 1-0 anyway. I think we're shocking, but
yeah, I think the season's over, but I've been reading a few comments and I think people are giving Klopp a bit of a hard time as well. I'm sure you've got to. I pray they don't sack him before he get. Do you think he'll get another season? Won't he?
100%. I wouldn't swap him for anything.
But sometimes that's the world we live in. You sack managers on 3 bad results. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny how it's changed.
Yeah. Well, look what he's done. The double. He's done some wonders at Liverpool. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, and look, it's only temporary. Form is temporary. Class is permanent.
Of course.
So look, I suppose just at the beginning of the very first episode of the podcast, like I don't have a degree in podcasting, kind of winging it here, something I'm doing in my spare room. Jill has got me a book, Podcasting for Dummies, and I'm on page 7 of that at the moment. So I'm kind of.
I'll be gentle.
So be gentle, because I've taken my podcasting cherry. So that's it. But I suppose, as you can tell by the atmosphere there, I'm trying to create with the team cover there, is I suppose as if we're sitting down in my sitting room having a cup of tea and a chat and that. So that's the atmosphere I want to create. So you're among friends.
Padraig, if only we could be sitting in your living room with the fire on, but that's the lockdown. And as I was saying before, we've kept each other sane, haven't we, through this lockdown? Because we've been mates since we met.
Yeah. Well, you've been great. You've been great. You've been great to keep in touch as well over the last year as well. So, and I suppose I just want to thank you for your time as well. You're very generous with your time and very supportive as well about setting up the podcast. No, it's appreciated, man.
Not a problem.
So just on that note, here's a cheers. There's my clap. Got the clap mug. Got your
cheers. You got the Have you got any biscuits, Padraig?
I've wagon wheels. I've gone through wagon wheel phase at the moment there, if you can see it.
Well, I've got the chocolate digestives. The only biscuits for Duncan.
Milk chocolate, is it?
Yeah, milk chocolate.
I prefer dark myself. That's what she said.
That's how I'm here.
We'll get to that in a bit. Before we start that, I suppose I just want to say how we actually got to know each other. I think that'd be a good point just before we talk about things. But Jake was in the Liverpool You'll Never Walk Alone history play in the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin, which we'll talk to in a bit more detail later on in April 2014. And myself and Michael, my cousin, were at it, and Jake and the rest of the cast came down and to the bar after and had a couple of drinks, and we kept in touch. We kept in touch on Facebook and that in later years. So I didn't think 7 years later we'd be sitting down doing a podcast. So it's funny how life can work. So it's a nice story.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
It's good. It's for the benefit. It's for the better. It's for the good. It's been good.
Yeah, it was great, mate. What a great play, and what a foundation for friendship. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been great, and I'll mention a bit later on, but that was a turning point in my Liverpool fan. Like, there were times, even, I suppose, me and Michael, growing up, we were very much in the minority. It was mainly Man United, in our family and all that. And I suppose there were times when United were winning doubles and trebles and what have you, like that. We wonder, have we made the right decision here? But coming out of the play that night, it kind of it really accentuated the point. Where I was never a Liverpool fan and the culture, and it was a turning point. But we'll come to that. So the man who made time made plenty of it. So we'll take our time. I don't know yet if that was God, Muhammad, Buddha, Moroni, or God's representative on earth, Robbie Fowler. But like Robbie Fowler, your journey began in Toxteth.
Yeah, I was. My family are from Toxteth. My dad he used to run. We used to run clubs, soul clubs like the Timepiece, the Babaloo in Liverpool. Started doing well, and we moved when I was about 9, 10. We moved to Kensington, where I am now. He got us. He moved us up. He did better for his family, and moved us to Kensington, which Kensington didn't have the name it's got now. When I was younger, it had an ice rink there. It was a decent place to bring your family up. And so, everything had its problems. I had its problems, but it was good. He did good for us, my dad. Yeah,
great stuff. So your grandparents, there's kind of a multicultural link with your family, isn't there? Like, as then you've got Irish Liverpool and you got African Liverpool.
Yeah, my grandfather was from Nigeria, Lagos. He met an Irish nurse in Liverpool, and they, as you know, the Irish and with the culture of Liverpool, Irish and black people got together, and they were just as much hated by the establishment as black people were.
I remember that at the time that would have been kind of a marriage outside the norm as well, in the sense that.
Oh yeah.
So obviously they were.
But obviously they adored each other, and you can't stop love. It's like that thing: no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. It's a known, it's a known saying, isn't it? That it was in the bed and breakfast windows in the 60s and 50s.
Yeah, whenever I hear that, I think like your grandparents should have brought up their dog up to the front door and said, "Any chance of some Sunday lunch there?" Like, rubbing their faces. Like. So that's great.
Excellent.
But growing up in Toxteth, I suppose Liverpool has been described as a city, as a world in one city. But Toxteth was kind of like a world in one neighbourhood, wasn't it? Like it was so multicultural.
It being one of the biggest ports in the world at the time, it's a multicultural melting pot, isn't it, Liverpool? And that's where we get all our culture from: our fight, our self-pride, our belief in ourselves, and our wisdom from. We know when we're being had over, and that's been the theme in Liverpool. Although it's not like that now. I've grown up as a kid. Things were very political, really, for me when I was a kid. I was always aware of Thatcher, and endemic racism. Not just black people. I mean, just it was the working class thing was a very big thing. Being working class in Liverpool. And everyone thinking that they're militant, and it was just people trying to get on, and the most loving, humorous people you'll ever meet are Liverpool people. People don't leave the city when they come here. That's why there's so many. We're so multicultural because people love the place.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that from my experience of the place. Like it's killing me not being able to get over the last 12 months. But
yeah, that's so good.
You played a bit of ice hockey.
Yeah, I just mentioned the ice rink, didn't I? Yeah, the Silver Blades ice rink in Liverpool, it's not there anymore. Somebody should bring it back. But yeah, I used to play ice hockey for the Liverpool Leopards because I lived 100 yards away from the ice rink. I lived at Dean Road and you could see the ice rink from my bedroom window. And I ended up playing ice hockey. I played for Great Britain under 16s. We went to Holland, Den Haag.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, we loved the ice rink. It was a great place. Great place to go on court and all that stuff. And yeah, it was a great childhood there.
It's a pity you didn't play for the Mighty Ducks. You could be called Jake the Drake. That could have been a good one. So fair dues. So growing up, Jake, did you go to Anfield or Goodison Park? When you're younger, did you go to the football?
Well, I went. My first game was a Liverpool game, but like we're saying, you just mentioned about the senior support. Over here, I think in Liverpool, you don't pick the team you support. You're given it by your father or your uncle or whoever. And I was given that, you know. But all my mates were all Liverpool supporters. So I used to go, I've been to more Liverpool games, funny enough, it sounds terrible, there's more Liverpool games than Everton games. But I love, you know, if it's a Liverpool team winning, I'm there. But as I said, I was into hockey when I was a kid, but yeah, that was given to me. Good, so, and we were talking about this, weren't we? My first game, and you remember it was, and you remember the date. It was a 7-0 win, and I remember bunking in with my mates and the turnstiles and getting into the Kop, and was terrified. It was just this moving animal swaying everywhere, and I got to the, you know, the barriers, and I was like crushed against them, you know. It was proper, really, you know, big burly men just come from work, from the docks, all screaming. It was just amazing. And the Kop was a living, breathing, singing animal.
Did you make it into the boys' pen, or was that kind of before?
No, onto the boys' pen, my first game at Everton, but we bumped into the Kop through the turnstiles when I was younger.
That would have been 78, I think, the 7-0 against Tottenham.
78, yeah.
I
remember. Yeah.
But no, I was just going to say that, like the Everton, like the Robbie Fowler, like Jamie Carragher, like Michael Owen, you know, on the Darwinian model, kind of evolved from an Everton fan into a Liverpool fan. So you're in your formative stages, that stage, like, yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I stood up in the evolutionary period and became a Liverpool supporter. You know, Liverpool have been good to me over the years. They've sent me tickets for games. I've been to a lot of charity things with Liverpool. And doing the play was just one of the greatest times I've ever had on stage. Was doing the Liverpool History play. We've been to football stadium. We've done it in stadiums. We've done it in all over, you know, in Belfast, Dublin. We've been everywhere with it, and it's been a great time in my life, Liverpool. And I thank them so much for that play, and Nicky Olds and the Royal Court Theatre and Bob Eaton.
Great stuff, yeah, that's brilliant. Like back in the 80s as well, I suppose we'll get to that a bit later about how Liverpool was downtrodden as a city in the 1980s, but it kind of rubbed it into the rest of the country's faces at the time that Liverpool and Everton were the two dominant teams, that they dominated in the league and FA Cup and Europe as well for the first half of the decade. And I think one thing I loved was in 1984, I saw in a documentary that Liverpool and Everton drew at Wembley 0-0, and as a show of solidarity with the rest of the country, Liverpool and Everton players lined up in one photograph together, and the whole of Wembley sang Merseyside, you know. So it was kind of it was kind of a two fingers to the south, London and stuff, like, you know. So
I'm meeting at the barricades because the north and south divide. People say, but there really was a north and south divide when I was younger. You know, you get going to London, you get Scousers, and you know, you get all that from them. But it's evaporating now. All that people are much. But it's funny thinking back how ridiculous it was. You know. And we were like, you know, we'll break up the Mersey tunnel, we'll, you know, all that stuff. We'll see you at the barricades. You know, get your passports. I'm from the People's Republic of Liverpool, and I still believe that.
You'd enjoy living in Cork then, because we're kind of the same, like People's Republic of Cork. I'm County Limerick originally, but I've been in Cork for 15 years, so an honorary Cork man. So
yes, isn't it the second biggest city in Ireland, Cork?
That's like Father Ted, the second best priest. Like, but yes, to answer your question, it is the second. It's the second biggest city in the Republic of Ireland. I think the Belfast is bigger if you would the All Ireland. That's a debate for another day. Belfast. But yeah, no, it is. It's a nice size city. Like it's not.
So my grandmother was from Tralee, Christine, and when my dad, later on in his life, he started going over back to Ireland to find his roots and stuff, because he'd been to Nigeria. We'll talk about that in a bit. And he said, he was the only, he said to me, these words, I was the only black face there. I walked, you know, I'd walk in a pub and everyone would go, who's this fella? It's right in the middle of the country. And he said, Jake, they were so nice to me. They took him to the church. They got his family records out. Took him to graves where his ancestors were buried. A lot of them some of them have been killed by the Black and Tans. He'd come back telling me this story. He'd often disappear and say, "Where are you?" Say, "I'm in Ireland." Yeah, he loved it. He loved the place.
Great stuff. That's great to hear. No, I think Tralee and Kerry, the further away you are from Ireland, the stronger the people tend to be. The further away from England we are in Ireland, the stronger people tend to be. So, when you were, I think you mentioned to me once that when you went to, did you get involved in the casual scene or anything like that when you were younger, or kind of having scraps of the football or anything like that, or?
No, well, we used to, we were young bucks, weren't we? Young, dumb, and full of, and so we used to. I remember going because there would always be the matches on, and we'd all come down Shield Road that led straight to Anfield, and I remember one day we all. I think I might have had my school uniform on. No, I don't think so. I don't know. Anyway, we ended up in a big melee of the crowd get walked all the way from the ground to the train station. We ended up mixed in it all, and a big fight broke out. All my mates from Kenny, Stephen Metcalf, a few, they'll know that, and then Nicky else. And I was too young to be there, you know what I mean? And they were all right up for having a scrap. And, come on, lads, get. And then they were screaming at us, throwing bricks at us and stuff. And a copper came up to me and went, bang, with this big leather glove. And I went, what was that for? He went, that's what you come for, didn't you? You come for a fight, no, piss off. I'll never forget that day. Big sergeant he was, just went really hard.
Which brings us nicely on to our next point. Quite apt. It's obviously there's nothing funny about this at all, but it's just coincidental that you mentioned police brutality, because that's the next point in the list here. So at the time, I'm just going to give you a few examples. I'm just going to set a bit of context to the Toxteth riots for people there. Not everyone in Ireland would be aware of the background. I certainly wasn't fully aware of it myself, so I did a lot of research on it. But at the time, black people in particular were treated horrendously by the police, especially in Liverpool 8, Toxteth. I've read it, there's a very good book, There She Goes, by Simon Hughes. It's a brilliant book, and you go around reading it at some stage, you'll enjoy it. But there was one law-abiding black woman who police knocked on her door and called her a breeder of mongrels, which is horrendous. It was a running joke in the Merseyside constabulary at the time to refer to searching young black people as going farming, which is just the implication of that, just in case people don't, is that black people are animals and they're farming, sort of herding animals.
The amount of times, mate, you would get stopped, sus laws and stop and search, which are now back, by the way. They're bringing that back. They probably bring Margaret Thatcher back if they could. So we get stopped on the streets, empty your pockets. What have you got? You'd be literally walking down the street and doing nothing. You get stopped, empty your pockets, and abused. And and it was scary, especially overnight. It was scary for some people. Some people got much worse than happened to me. But in the end, that's what people. It only takes a few bad coppers who are leading, who are or high up, can turn a police force into what it became in Liverpool. And Ken Oxford wasn't the best chief inspector we've ever had. So it was endemically racist, the police force. There was no black officers. You'd never seen a black officer, and they'd stop you. And in the end, people had had enough. They just nick you. They fit people up, and they target somebody and say, like, we want him, and So I might be speaking out of turn, but I know this is what I know. This is what I was brought up with. And in the end, they nicked this one guy, and they didn't have it no more. And it was a lot of people around. It turned into a riot, but it became more than right. It became a class thing. It was like a class war with us. It was like, people just not going to take it anymore. And this is what happens. It happens all over the world.
I was just going to give another example there, I suppose, of in the book there was a guy, Jimmy Jagney, and he was walking home from school as a 12-year-old in Toxteth, and police picked him up and ordered him to get into the car, and they drove him 6 miles away from Toxteth and emptied his school bag into a big puddle, physically abused him, and literally said to him, I suppose, and I quote, "Listen, you little black bastard, if you ever think you can go around making trouble or robbing from nice white people, we'll be back for you." So he had to walk 6 miles back with a destroyed school books. He was quite a studious guy, like, and he went on in education, and he was too afraid to tell his mother, because in his head that if the police apprehended you, you were at fault, you know.
Yeah.
So that was horrendous, like, and I think it was
12-year-old.
Yeah, 12-year-old, yeah. But Margaret Simey, which we'll another quote from later on, but she said that the people in Toxteth would be apathetic fools if they didn't protest. And to be fair,
exactly.
You mentioned Ken Oxford a while ago. Like, to be fair, like he was the chief constable of Merseyside during this, and I'd say he was responsible for a good share of this. So I suppose just to describe to people,
just by his quote, the things he said in the papers and on the news, the things he said. Yeah.
Well, I've 4 examples here. I know just to set the scene as to why, and to give a bit of context as to why things went as bad as they did. Like, you know, just giving into insight in his personality. If I'm arrogant, then the spice of arrogance is a necessary constituent of command, which is bullshit, because, you know, any good managers that I ever had in my current one as well, in current job, has been humble and down to earth and not arrogant, like, you know. So
you can't demand respect; you've got to earn it.
Exactly, it has to be earned. This one in particular would be particularly insulting to yourself, Jake, as a half caste or as a product of a mixed race marriage. Yeah. The problem of half castes is that the majority of them have been the product of liaisons between black seamen. Now, they mean sailors there, but that's a double meaning. Yeah, but and white prostitutes in Liverpool 8, and he can refer to that as the red light district. The Negroes will not accept them as black and white, just assume they are coloureds. As a result, the half-caste community of Liverpool is well outside recognised society.
Wow. That was accepted from a chief constable. He should have been sacked immediately.
Yeah. The Toxteth were not a racial issue. This was a crowd of black hooligans intent on making life unbearable and indulging in criminal activities. So it's kind of overstepping the fact that there were white people there as well. Now, later on down the road, it's not relevant right now, but just to show an example of the type of fella this was, he felt uneasy with Anfield, where had been turned into a shrine by the grieving Liverpool fans after Hillsborough. So how did this come get a knighthood, is what I'd be asking.
Yeah, there you go. You know,
Thatcher, I think you only mentioned Thatcher a while ago, and we're going. There's a nice surprise coming for people later in the podcast who aren't a fan of Maggie Thatcher.
Yeah.
That. But when you look at the people like the people that she rubbed shoulders with, like Jimmy Savile, you know, obviously that guy.
Dale Smith.
Yeah.
All that firm, all corrupt.
Yeah.
Deviants. You know what I mean? And that was what they were making decisions on people's lives. They were making decisions that affected people in their everyday lives. And then you've got the likes of Ken Oxford. No wonder it was a tinderbox. It was a hot summer. People were angry, and people had had enough. So, and you know, you'd have to be mad to put up with that. You'd have to be mad. I mean, that's a dictate. Those things happen. The way it was, those things happen in dictatorship countries. You know, it couldn't. It would never. Thinking back now, it was bizarre that it was allowed to happen. You know.
Yeah, cool.
You know, what we were talking about, that letter about the what was it about the withdrawal from them? What was we were talking about? I can't remember this letter.
The managed decline, is it?
The managed decline of the city.
Yeah, that was Jeffrey Ho. Yeah, I'm going to come to that in the Thatcher character. I read. Yeah, I can read it out now if you prefer. Yeah.
Go on, mate. Yeah, love that.
So here we go. So Geoffrey Ho wrote to Maggie Thatcher warning of the need. I know this is a 6 or 7 lines and there's a bit of detail in it, but every bit of it is relevant and important, so it is good to read out. So Geoffrey Howe wrote to Mrs. Thatcher, warning of the need not to overcommit scarce resources to Liverpool, saying that he feared Merseyside was going to be much the hardest nut to crack. We do not want to find ourselves concentrating all the limited cash that may have to be made available into Liverpool and have nothing left for possibly more promising areas such as the West Midlands or even the North East. It would be even more regrettable if some of the brighter ideas for renewing economic activity were to be sown only on relatively stony ground on the banks of the Mersey. I cannot help feeling that the option of managed decline is one which we should not forget altogether. We must not expend all our limited resources in trying to make water flow uphill. And then he kind of finishes off, this is not a term for use, even privately, it is much too negative. It certainly is that anyway, is it?
Wow. That's the Liverpool people as a whole, and how they got away with that as well. And then you wonder why people rise, and you got a police commissioner, police chief inspector, chief constable, sorry, like that. Wow. Looking back, I don't know how the city survived that type of prejudice and biasness against one of the greatest cities in the country now, that makes people proud to be from this country. It's a great city.
You mean the People's Republic of Liverpool?
The People's Republic of Liverpool. The rest of the country should be proud of us, because we brought wealth, culture and money into the country. And and that's the thanks you get from the government.
Yeah. But just get back to the Toxteth Riots. Can you kind of go through your experience of it and how your memories of it, and how this was the role you might have played in that?
I first heard the riots, and it was a news flash. It was a late news flash on I think it was ITN, and this riots in Toxteth. Everyone knew it was things were happening. Because I was going the Everyman a lot then, and that was a really left wing. I say left wing. It was an artistic. It was the sense of the universe for Liverpool actors. Most of everyone come from there. All the McGanns, Kathy Tyson, Dave Morrissey, Ian Hart. I go on and on, and everyone was talking about it, and that's where we've been talking that night. And then I got home and then heard about the riots on the news, and everyone went down. And to get there, you'd have to go around the back ways because they cut all the streets off, and it was crazy. Like what we were saying, you're breaking bricks in the hot sun. Breaking bricks in the hot summer's night, sweating, but this isn't a chain gang. It's 81 and it's the Liverpool riots. Yeah, so it was sort of exciting, it was an exciting thing, and then it was like a news block, and I was quite young, I was young then, but it was. And you'd hear stories the next day, and someone had took a JCB through the Rialto, which was also then it's documented that was a racist place. They wouldn't employ black people. So it was like about time. It was like fucking we've had enough.
Did you throw a few bricks yourself?
Couldn't write it, did.
Good stuff.
Not far enough. Yeah.
Your dad, the police were trying to get your dad.
Oh yeah, that's a good story. Yeah. So the police, because my dad was known to the police, and he was a well-respected guy in the South End and the Toxteth and that. And he knocked on the door and said, "Jake, they're going to go into town. Would you come down and have a word with you?" And he just chased him down the path and went, "Fuck off, you've been putting me in jail all my life, piss off."
Yeah, I think there wouldn't have been.
And that's a true story. Two coppers knocked and said, "Come down, have a word with them." Because after that, a few, figureheads of the community sort of came into fruition, or sort of whatever the word I'm looking for. They sort of, out of the depths, these people came and started leading it and changing the area for the better, and and having a voice to the anger, a calm voice to people's anger, and things we got, to get people. You have to get them around the table, don't you, to sort these things out.
Absolutely. I don't think there would have been many tears shed in Ireland at the time.
No, I'm sure but and then it spread, didn't it? I think it happened in Notting Hill or in Brixton, and then was it Leeds and Answorth, I think.
Yeah, but I suppose at the time, I suppose the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4 wrongly in prison, and 2 months before that, I suppose Bobby Sands and the IRA hunger strikers and after Thatcher left, so I'd imagine there wouldn't have been a terrible amount of sympathy for the police. Repression like at that time in Ireland as well, so there would have been good solidarity. I think there always has been great solidarity between Liverpool.
There was it wasn't just that the riots. There was a lot of white people there after the first stage. There was a lot of white people there. So it was more of a class thing in the end. It was, there was a lot of used to go on used to go on marches and stuff, and just people. I think that's now. You've got these laws where we can't gather. I think people are so pissed off. I remember going on marches, and there'd be 200,000, 300,000 people, going to London and stuff. And now it's illegal to do that. So I dread to think what the future holds.
Please God, things will improve anyway. What can we say? It's like Liverpool losing 6 home games in a row. The only way is up, we'll come to that.
It's gotta be, hasn't it?
But what I suppose the riots went on for 2 or 3 days in Toxteth. I know it went on a bit longer, but consecutive 2 or 3 days. And just to get a vision, was it a case I just had this image of a few lads saying, "Listen, I've done my 8 hours. I'm clocking off. Will you take over there?"
Shift work, making bricks, shift work.
I want to eat my dinner there. More bricks to be fired later on, type of thing.
And
was it kind of like that?
They were all laying on riot shields, getting arrested from throwing bricks, and then the next line would go through, and it became efficient, and the police were banging the junctions on the shields, making this wail, and a lot of police doing that. It was quite scary, all coming down, and then everyone started going Zulu, Zulu, and it was just like and then they backed off, and then it was crazy.
Was that Zulus like the form in Birmingham?
No, from the film.
Oh, Zulu, yeah. But in Birmingham,
like a tribe, you know what I mean? It was, and because the noise the police were making was. I was on. Where was I? Oh, it was the top of Parliament Street. I hadn't got to Parliament Street, and police were going past just before I'm shining torches at people going woo. And the police were excited about it as well. Before it was a crazy atmosphere. Buildings burning. It was mad, yeah.
And speaking of the Racket Club, and that was a symbol of oppression as well, because it was kind of like the cruel irony at the time that the only time the police came was to brute, other than, I suppose they went to play racket and with all the hobnobs and all that.
Yeah, and the hospital, the club there, and they got all the artwork out before it got burnt down, didn't they? And then there also, which is the bank now, isn't it, on the corner? There were symbols, weren't they, that people. Yeah,
but the only other time that they came into Toxteth was to brutalise you, and then just rubbing in their faces like they're playing racket,
Yeah. Now the community. Yeah. Let's go and play with the chaps. Now it's I'm only talking this particular vernacular. Now everybody's been dispersed. It's that, Granby Street it was like a carnival some days you go there. Speakers on the streets. It was really great place, really colourful, great. And now it's like a ghost town. And they just knocked everything down and dispersed all the families across the city. So there was everyone was in. You didn't leave. The black community lived in a place. They didn't venture out. And my dad was one of the first people to actually venture out of and open a club in town. The timepiece, we opened that with his mate Jimmy back, and Les Spain was a DJ there, who ended up A&R man for Motown Records. So my dad was one of the first people to to break out of that mold and and do well for himself.
Very good.
So that's why I think that's why the police come and ask them, can you sort them out? They're on the way into town.
Yeah, do one
yeah, get down the path.
But I suppose just the Racket Club and that, I suppose there'd be a lot of symbols of oppression, like as in, I suppose they were saying that there was gold stolen from their original countries like Sierra Leone and all that, and it was just saying, I can understand how that would have been in your face.
Oh, that was a target. Yeah, that was definitely a target. Yeah, because it was right in the middle, and they would have because Grafton Street and Palmer Street were all big houses that were, you know, the wealth lived in, and all the big merchants lived there in Falcon Square, and then they became dilapidated, and now that they're prospering again, and the rich moved back in, and that's, you know, that was one of the places that was like that was definitely going to go, the Racket Club. Yeah.
But look, I suppose. So sometimes things have to hit rock bottom before they improve, you know. And look, I suppose,
we have,
But
we got a lot of funding after that.
Garden Festival, Heseltine.
Yeah, that was a good success, wasn't it? We got, you know, we got a lot of, you know, the arts got a lot of funding for it, and the houses, you know, people were living in terrible houses, and the housing situation got better as well.
Well, I suppose something to say you experienced, and I suppose you played a role in that. But I've read, I suppose, that you had like respectable housewives making petrol bombs and stuff like that as well in Toxteth. But no, look, it's good that you experienced that, or played a role in that. Like it was it's in Liverpool itself. Outside of Toxteth, it would be referred to as the Liverpool 8 Riots, but it kind of hit on the consciousness. It just became known as the Toxteth Riots.
Yeah,
but really,
yeah. Well, and at the time, I was at the Everyman Youth Theatre, and we were doing. So we heard about it, and we were doing plays. We were writing plays about it, and you know, it became. You know, that was our outlet, really. You know, that was my escape as well. Going to the Everyman Youth Theatre was. It's great for me, you know. I don't know what was worst things could have happened to me about that didn't come into my life. So I thank that place for it.
So in the uprising is how it's known in Liverpool 8, I believe, and I suppose it just reminds me of the Easter Rising in 1916. But we had less bricks in Dublin, petrol bombs. So moving on from Toxteth, Jake. You mentioned earlier you moved to Kensington, where you are now, and it reminded me of Howard Gayle. I've read Howard Gayle's book, 61 Minutes in Munich, and he actually mentions your dad's club, the Babylon, and the timepiece on page 60 of 61 Minutes in Munich. So, yeah, just
thanks for the book, mate. Yeah, my mum said thanks as well. Thanks for sending that. Yeah. I know how he's a lovely lad. Yeah. You know, there's some great stories about what he went through and how he could have, you know, one person changed his direction he was about to go in because he had something going from the football, which reminds me, I had something to go for. So good on him. Yeah. But I love that he mentioned me that like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, it was a fascinating book. It just reminded me actually of Howard, another story about Toxteth, that he was on about like the institutionalized racism in Liverpool, and so Tommy Smith was particularly cruel, bullied from one of his heroes.
I mean I wouldn't have believed that, and I met Tommy Smith doing the Liverpool History show, and he was, when I first met him, he was okay, and he got Alzheimer's. He wasn't well, but I wouldn't have thought that. But when I think back, it was endemic. People were just like that. It was. People used to just bandy that word around, and I was thinking when you saw. I remember playing ice hockey, and we had the game, and I mentioned to him, and he was pissed off over something. This player, and I won't say his name. And then as he got off the coach, I must have said, "Yeah, Drake came and went, fuck off, you," and dropped the N word, and it really, really hurt me, you know. And that stuck with me for years. How much that really, and how easy it was for him to say it. Now, and I seen him must have been 20 years later, walking down the street with a black wife, his wife's back. You know,
yeah.
It was just the way people. It was okay to speak like that. It was just, it was crazy. Yeah, and Tommy Smith.
I'm delighted that he lost the captaincy and Emlyn Hughes got the first two European Cups to Liverpool after hearing that.
We were reading it in the book. It's disgusting what he put Howard through. Saying that nasty all right through training was the first one of the first black players, and to be treated like that, how can he wanted them to fail? And I think it's disgusting.
Well, I suppose just Howard put up for a certain amount of time, but there was one day in training where he overstepped the mark, and he kind of said to him that one of these nights, Tommy, you're going to get up, take a piss in the middle of the night, and I'm going to be standing over you with a baseball bat, and we'll see what you have to say then, you know. So the racial abuse stopped. But look, I suppose he strikes me from the book as having a man of, he has the courage of his convictions. You know, when you mentioned, it just came into my head there that as part of his initiation ceremony as a Liverpool player, there was a comedy gig with Roy Chubby Brown. Have you heard this?
No.
But they got a stripper anyway as part of the initiation was that she did a dance for him. And without being crude, she put her chest into his face, covered in talcum powder. And Roy Brown called out over the microphone, "Now walk through Toxteth." So now Roy left that, Howard let that go. There is a bit of black humor in that, I don't know.
Yeah, and in the day they were all probably laughing their heads off. But I think Howard Gayle thinks back at that, and I know for the fact that Howard Gayle, that sits with him, and but it's put in the book. It doesn't give him a warm, fuzzy feeling. It makes him feel like fuck. It makes you feel like you couldn't. It makes you feel like you're not a man for saying shut your mouth, or because you were scared. If you'd said you fucking speak, everyone would go, "Oh, shut up." So it sits with you. It sits with you.
No, I think that they could have picked their audience a bit better there with that joke, because I don't think, then
Chubby Brown, you would expect, you'd expect that from Chubby Brown anyway. Even I was speaking to John Barnes about this because he used to come on the show, and he used to throw bananas at me and things, throw banana skins at him, just get the monkey noises. So just in the end, it just. But for him, he said it just made me play better. It made me want to score.
So that was just an example of that. But it was a really good book, really good social commentary of what it was like being the first black player to play for Liverpool, and I really enjoyed reading it. But I suppose the reason Howard came into my head there was the fact that he moved from Toxteth to Norris Green, which is similar to a predominantly white area. Like you did to Kensington. So did you get much grief?
It was always like this. They could always pull that some card out on you and say, shut up, shut up, you end. Or, if you were in an argument, say, shut up. And he probably had that. And we were speaking about this when I used to say if you would never be spoken to like that in Toxteth. No one would call you that in Toxteth. And now black people use that word as a term of affection. They've disarmed it. You're my brother, you're my, you know what I mean? That's my, so I used to say, no one says it in Toxteth because you get lynched. But I used to get it every day. I used to walk past the National Front headquarters, was the whole pub, and they'd have the meetings there, they'd have the meetings in that pub, and that was my run from school. I'd come home past that pub, and they'd be like that outside, madness.
Yeah, so they're doing the Nazi salute.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that at all now, right? And it was like the time where Churchill, when they were going down, wherever they were, English Defence League, were protecting Churchill's statue. So, like, they were going down, making Nazi salutes, protecting the statue of a man who fought against the Nazis. Like, you couldn't make it up, And
that's just fucking stupidity, isn't it? That's just people without any direction in their life, looking for something and not even understanding the subject that they're prepared to give blood for. What's that all about?
Yeah.
Churchill
as well. You're probably very well aware of this point, but just in case other people aren't. But Churchill sent a gunboat down the Mersey back in 1911 at the National Transport Strike.
Yeah.
So that was not a friend of Liverpool either.
He's another Tory prick.
Yeah. Just for the Welsh fans, my Welsh friends, I might have Welsh fans in the future. I want one or two now, but for my Welsh friends, there was a comment he made about the Welsh. That if the Welsh, I think there was some food shortages in Wales or something, and he was saying if the Welsh are hungry, we'll have to fill their bellies with lead.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
He
wasn't a great man for Ireland either, Churchill. So
what a war! People think you want. I think the Yanks won us the war. It wasn't. Churchill's just. He was the worst politician you could ever have. They just brought him back for the war. It's because he was a bit of a bulldog, and he was quickly put back in his closet when the war was over as well. So
he's a war criminal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. South Africa, stuff in South Africa. He was a prick.
That reminds me actually of with Michael Collins. You mentioned Ian Hart a while ago. Ian Hart was actually in Michael Collins, the movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Yeah,
but there's a story at the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and Michael Collins, the Churchill and hated Michael Collins, and he put £10,000. That was like the fee on his head to get Michael Collins dead or alive,
Yeah.
Well, I'd imagine alive, but he was like, Mr. Collins, you must be a much superior soldier to me because I only had £1,000 on my head during the Boer War, with all accounts to be captured, and you have 10,000. And he was like, yes, Mr. Churchill, but I fear you're not allowing for inflation, just the National Front. With the National Front, I saw, I put it up on YouTube, but the BBC took it down for copyright, so they should have other priorities than that, I would say. But we're taking down my YouTube videos. But it was on a show. It was all right in the 70s. And they're on it. I don't know if you saw it or not, but National Front actually had planned.
It wouldn't play. So maybe taken down. It wouldn't play.
Yeah. I'll summarize it for you. The National Front had plans of setting up concentration camps in the rest of the country, in England, for non-white Anglo-Saxon people. So, and that included Irish as well. So, and they were just saying how they'd have great fun. Carrying out the final solution of non-white people. So
imagine if that, imagine if people like that actually do gain power. That's how I think democracy is. People are fucking stupid. It's crazy that
And it could very easily happen again,
and do you know what I mean? If you just get the wrong person to get in, and you blame everything on somebody, all the ills of the country, the lack of work, the lack of good future and prospects, they blame it on a minority. Look at the Brexit was brought in on a race. That was a racist vote about immigration, and it had nothing to do with immigration. It was about big corporate business lining the pockets again. That's what Brexit was all about. And people voted for it on immigration, and immigration laws. It's all just the same. Nothing's changed. And there is no immigration problem, because look at America, it's an immigrant country. Liverpool's an immigrant country. People move around the world. You bring wealth, you bring education, you bring new talents to your country. You need new blood all the time. And how that was pushed through is it could have, if packaged it could have been, fascists could just package themselves just like that. Next minute we've got a government in that are totally right-wing fascists, and before you know it, people are brainwashed people. Even even now with the COVID around, like, fucking, what's going on?
Yeah, I know it's but one place that's not too easy to brainwash is Liverpool, because the English Defence League were trying to do a march and they got ran out of it there not long ago, which was, I'm sure you enjoyed that.
Did you see what they did? They thought they could come and take over Liverpool, and they ended up hiding in the lost luggage at Lime Street with the shutters down. And I forget, there's a great, someone put it up and put a great quote underneath it. What was it? Oh, and anyway, they came, they conquered, and ended up in lost luggage. I've ruined that there, so we might have to cut that out. But yeah, the furthest they got was lost luggage, basically. Yeah,
good stuff. That's good to hear.
And you know what? I know a couple of lads who went down there to make sure they didn't get into Liverpool, and a lot of them were white people.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. That's no harm anyway, because we've enough fascists out there.
Yes.
So there's actually a very good video on YouTube as well about Kensington and the difference between Kensington, Liverpool, and Kensington, London. And there's a video on YouTube, The Tale of Two Kensingtons, where this guy goes into London and Liverpool, the two different Kensingtons, and compares the two areas. And I just thought it was interesting how there was like this tough whinging.
You mean Kensington and Kenny?
And yes, Kenny. He didn't call that in the video. No, he was a BBC guy, but no, he seemed like a nice fella. No, in fairness to him, but there was this tough whinging about having to pay a mansion tax in Kensington. You know, like woe is me, like I have to pay a mansion tax.
Jeez. And so that's why they bring in a poll tax, so we all pay for them. You know, that's what Paul's council tax is.
But then he came back up to Kenny, and like your mothers, single mothers, having to use food banks, and you're like, I'm sure they'd love to have your trouble there, sunshine. Like, but Kensington, I just to add a bit of culture, which we're going to do throughout the podcast and in this one as well. I came across a poem by a very good friend of yours, I'm sure, Dave Kirby.
Yeah, Dave.
About Kensington, and this was filmed. He wrote a poem at the time of Bambich had just bought Chelsea, and Liverpool were playing Chelsea in an FA Cup semi-final, and he wrote this poem that went out beforehand in the pre-match build-up. I thought it struck a chord, and I'm going to read it for you there, and I think you'll enjoy it. Yes. So basically, just a difference between Kensington, Liverpool, and Kensington. Sorry, Kenny in Liverpool and Kensington, and Kensington in London, and or Chelsea. Just the difference between the two, Chelsea and Liverpool. There's one part, I suppose, the camera shoots to Anfield and Kensington, the streets of Kensington. So you have to use your imagination for that. But I'll read it.
With the words.
So, Kensington, London, the elite of the South, where the dogs walk around with gold teeth in their mouth. The home of the monarchs and the filthy rich, the Windsors, the Spencers, and Abramovich. Kensington, Liverpool, a different tale. As you can see, is the other end of the scale. If you're talking wealth, we haven't got much, but we've got something that Chelsea can't touch. All right, they've got palaces and the Royal Albert Hall, but not far from here is the home of football. 19 championships, 7 FA Cups, 6 European big ones. I'm not making this up. Mm-hmm. You see, from these humble streets, there's something we've learned, that you can't buy history. It's got to be earned. All the money in Chelsea couldn't buy what we've seen, what we've achieved. They can only dream. Even though they beat us on Thursday night there, but
Yes, Dave Kirby does it. Is right. That was great. Yeah.
And on that note, we want to pay a trip here to a place where the Merseyside police are hoping to install speed cameras, because it's a good place to pick up 3 points recently. Anfield. 6 defeats in a row. So yeah, Anfield's just sort of I mix it up a bit there to get the visuals to keep people entertained. So, but yeah, we'll
no, brilliant.
But no, just we're going to go have a break very shortly before we do that.
Is the referee blowing his whistle there? Is it half time?
Jill. So what we're going to do there is I just want to have a chat with you there about what was it like as obviously, because you would have been in your teens when Thatcher took power, was in the 80s. So what if you could just maybe talk a bit about what it was like living in Thatcher's Britain. Obviously we've seen boys in the back stuff and all that, and I suppose what impact?
I mean, look, you know, in school, because as you were saying that, I was getting flashbacks from school where you could feel the apathy in teachers because they knew there was no work for people. So what's the point of teaching, you know, these kids? Although I had started acting as a kid, But I remember school being miserable, and you know, and houses with the curtains blowing through smashed window. You know, it was dereliction. Just the care of the city just left to dilapidate. But it was the like a little bit. It's a little bit like that now, about no future, about not being able to really plan for your immediate future or your long-term future, because, well, it was sort of coming out of it now. It's a bit of a tunnel, but it was dark, much darker than that in Liverpool at the time. And Thatcher was hated. You know, the Tory government was hated, and Labour were Labour then. They're not like, you know, wolves in sheep's clothing like they are now. You know, so you always thought politics would change things. So it was bleak, and it was you knew you were going on the dole. I remember, you know, everyone was going on the dole. What are you going to do? Sign on. Everybody just sign on. Queues, sign on. The dole used to be in Renshaw Street, and it was like it's an underground car park, and the queues were just mad. You'd have to go and sign on every week there to get your Jaro. You didn't get your Jaro, you didn't sign on. And the queues, you know, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Well, look, as like, I suppose I have a theory before, and I said it, that being affiliated with Ireland probably didn't do Liverpool much favours in the 70s and 80s, that the Tories put them to the bottom of the associated Liverpool with the Irish connection and that type of thing. And I suppose Thatcher,
we were supposed to be sympathetic, and people used to always say, I bet there's a lot of sleepers, Irish sleepers in Liverpool, you know, the Irish club and all that. Irish people just brought music and laughter wherever they went. So that was a load of bollocks. But we have an affinity with Ireland. Everybody says Dublin is like Liverpool, so you know, we are Irish. We love the Irish.
You'd probably be friendlier people, I would say, to be honest. But that's another story. Dubs are grand too. I have family in Dublin as well.
Yeah, I know. But you know, that's what gets said a lot.
It's the capital city thing, isn't it? You know.
Yeah,
everyone has to go off the capital.
They say it about New York too, but we're like Irish people here, definitely.
Good stuff.
More Irish than English.
Derek, I know. I like the story about Derek Hatton. That the other himself and some other councillors met Thatcher one time, and they didn't stand in her when she came in. She had to stoop down to shake their hand.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the meeting, which obviously pissed her off a lot. But at the end of the meeting, she asked him whether she was going to help 37 Camel Lair dockers who just been jailed because of her policies, and she said, "Any respect I've ever had for you, Mr. Hatton, is just gone. And by the way, I never had any in the first place."
Well,
even just Hillsborough, obviously she had a big part in the Hillsborough cover-up. And it came out and said at one stage that Liverpool as a city is possessed with a particularly violent nature. And I think there's a quote, no, I don't have a direct quote for it, but something along the lines that they'd like if Liverpool could be cut adrift and just sail into the Irish Sea, that it wouldn't bother them as well. So there was definitely a very...
Can imagine she felt like that. Yeah, she's what a horrible woman. And we suffered for it. We were underfunded, and we had this. We were Labour at one point, and they underspent the budget, and we ended up with that budget as well. So it just got lower and lower. So I mean, they've been raping this city for years. You know, look at all the wealth this city. You only have to look at our architecture. It's beautiful. You know, St. George's all around it. But it was, I just think, just let them live here for a couple of weeks and they'll realise what a beautiful place and lovely people it is. It's a lovely people that are. It's a lovely place to live. That's why I'm still here, you know.
Great stuff, yeah. When Maggie Thatcher died in 2013, obviously there was street parties and
songs, street parties, yeah.
Like I know people say you shouldn't speak ill of the dead and all that, but you know, I don't think being dead gives people a free pass for being horrible, like, you know, and
for putting other people's in their graves, because I'm sure she, you know, she's responsible for a lot of that.
Did you do anything yourself on that particular day, or?
Yeah, we all had a drink. We had a good drink and a good laugh. Yeah, we were playing that song. Who did? Someone did a song about it. It was a Liverpool band. Oh, I wish I could remember. Yeah, and we just sang that all night. Yeah. And it was posted in people's windows. It was great. Yeah, it was great. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? But she was a bitch.
Yeah, well, she was an evil woman, and you know, and she definitely contributed to Liverpool losing a lot of jobs, and I'd imagine there's a lot of, as you said yourself, she put a lot of people inadvertently.
Well, the Falklands War, they say, was a re-election campaign. She used that to get re-elected, you know, and that's what's scary about. We were talking about fascism before. If she could be re-elected 3 times into power by the majority of the country, what does that say about where people's heads are? What does that say about the voting system? What does that say about the future? If she could have been what she did and was voted in again and again, who's voting? You know?
Yeah. Well, that's what I couldn't understand. Why would you keep electing her? Like, you know, people in Britain, you know, but
no, fucking crazy.
There was a quote I meant to read out beforehand. It was from Elvis Costello, and it's the foreword to one of Nicky Al's books, Klepto, which is I'm reading at the moment there. It's a very good book, and I suppose it's while you and your government one day made the decision to trample on a whole generation, one day we'll decide to tramp the dirt down. And which obviously would tie in what we were saying. Liverpool was described as an imperial mausoleum during the 80s as well. Imperial too.
The
past they come up haunted. So the Hillsborough disaster, Jake, what was your memories of that and of that time?
Well, it's like one of those days, isn't it? Where was you? Like when Kennedy was shot. It's especially, you know, to Liverpool people, everybody knows where he was and how they heard it. I was with another actor, Sean McKee. He's not with us. Sadly, he's not with us now. And we were saying, what's going on? And you know, it was unfolding in front of us. It was shocking, unbelievable, and it was like a nightmare. You know, it's one of those nightmares. It was just. And then the vivid memory I've got of watching it on telly is someone putting someone on a board, you know, and all that stuff, and the news. It's all like mixed up to me now, but what a horrible day. And then there's you asked me about the sun. Did you ask me about the sun?
So the sun was just as an example of how Scousers stick together and really. I mean, the Sun newspaper is a great example of that.
I mean, in Liverpool now, you can go around Liverpool and still see taxis with "Don't buy the Sun" on the side of taxis. I mean, the Sun said, I won't even repeat what that scum piece of toilet paper wrote about Liverpool people at the Hillsborough tragedy. Absolute scum, what was wrote. And no one, not even Evertonians, buy that paper in this city. And I hope the rest of the country stops buying that piece of shite, because the things they wrote about Scousers, people should have been arrested. If I was to go around saying libel, horrible things like that, I'm sure I'd be brought to task. And I just don't think they were enough.
And then Kelvin McKenzie coming out saying, "I'm not sorry then, I'm not sorry now." And, rubbing salt in the wounds, you know.
Yeah, 96 young people just went to a football match. That's all. Just brings it home.
Well, I think just the way that you all stuck together.
The solidarity of Liverpool people, Everton and Liverpool people were united in the grief, definitely.
And the fact a month later that they played an FA Cup final at Wembley at Liverpool and Everton, it was quite poignant.
That they took photos together. Yeah. It was one team that day, wasn't it? One team.
It was just an awful pity, the Michael Thomas. Obviously, what happens on a football pitch is immaterial when you're dealing with a tragedy like that and the circumstances, but to lose the league in the last minute against Arsenal with the Michael Thomas goal, you know, and a month after Hillsborough, was what a killer that was, like, you know.
Yeah.
On top of that, and I was just a really heartbreaking.
I just don't think, you know, you've seen me use a picture of Kenny Dalglish after him going to all those funerals and his face. I'm sure, I don't think no one forgives Liverpool for the way for not really. I'm surprised he even played. He just played for the people for that day, and it wasn't about the result, was it?
Yeah, and look, the Hillsborough disaster obviously had a big impact on Kenny Dalglish himself as well. He carried a lot of emotional baggage from that, and
you can see it in his face.
It burned him out, even though he wouldn't say it straight out. You can tell it had to have had an effect on him for the next year and a half.
As I said, I've just said, and we say it in the play as well, you could see it in his face. You just could see it in his face. He was a gone grey shadow of a man. Yeah.
There was a line in the BBC version of Hillsborough, the drama, and Ricky Tomlinson was playing in that. I remember it was an interesting line that his character had in that play, that when the news broke on the BBC watching it at home, that they'll probably blame it on some bloody Irishman. And I just kind of thought that was an interesting line. Yeah. And obviously they were using drink as an excuse that it drunken Liverpool fans. And I don't know, I can just imagine being a parent or a brother or a close friend of someone who died in Hillsborough and to see that shit plastered over the newspaper the following day, you know. For someone who's not familiar, I suppose I just give a bit of context to people who's not familiar, that the Sun newspaper wrote some pretty scurrilous things about Liverpool fans after Hillsborough, saying like they picked the pockets of the dead, urinating in dead bodies, beating up cops, giving the kiss of life. It's horrible stuff, but just to explain that in case for anyone who had unfounded allegations. And it led to a boycott of the newspaper in Merseyside 30 years later. And, you know, I'm delighted.
And it's not sold in many places in Liverpool. And they even have the cheek to advertise in Liverpool that because they know they lost that paper, lost a great, you know, lost so many readers because of that. But I was never a fan of that paper in the first place. So not this.
A rag, as you say.
Yeah, a rag, toilet paper.
So, based on that, on that cheery note. On that cheery note, on that cheer, I was going to pay tribute before we put the kettle on again. I was going to pay tribute to Maggie.
Go on.
In her own way. This is a song that was written by Sean Brady and performed by the Belfast Busker. And I suppose this is a tongue-in-cheek tribute to Maggie, shall we say. I've sang it for you a few times and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I hope
like
people will as well. And feel free to join in as well.
Okay.
At the chorus near the end or whatever. So, oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher. You're the darling of us all. You're the curse of the Irish nation, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. You've destroyed me higher purchase and you've put me on the dole. If I could get me hands on you, I'd kick you up the. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher. No one in this world can match her. She's trying to take the vote away from the Paddies once again. We're not worried about your blasted vote, nor your politicians' gas. You can keep them, Mrs. Thatcher. You can stick them up your. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher. You're the cutest girl of all. Such a biddy, fine and buxom, sure the like she can't recall. When she holds negotiations, things they always reach a hitch. She's the world in ruination, such a schemer, the old bitch. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher, with your prices rising high. And the work is getting awful scarce, we're losing that's no lie. Now you say that you don't want to stay, you've been here long enough. If I was a taxidermist, well, I'd tell you to get stuffed. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher, sure you know a trick or two. And when you come to Dublin, we know just what you'll do. Sure, you'll dress up in your finery, you'll bitch with all your might. And all your fancy promises are just a load of shite. You love this verse now.
Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher.
There's one more verse before that. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher, like your old man likes a brew. Such a lad as husband Dennis, when he's had a drink or two, sure he'll take a pint of Murphy's and a glass of Irish mist. And because he sleeps with you each night, no wonder he's always pissed. Oh, we love you, Mrs. Thatcher, you're the darling of us all. For the curse of the Irish nation, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, you've destroyed me higher purpose and you put me on the If I could get me hands on you, I'd kick you off the hole. There you go.
Yours, Thatcher.
I never thought I'd hear the words Maggie Thatcher and Buxom in the same sentence. So
yeah, I was thinking that. But you Buxom, yeah.
So listen, what we're going to do now, I think some coal in the fire needs to be put on it, and the kettle needs to be refilled. So we're just going to take a quick break, guys, and we'll be back shortly. So join us in the second half for more. And this time we're actually going to talk about what Jake is most well known for, which usually happens in the first 5 minutes of every interview he's ever done, I'd say. But Locke's talking to Smoking Bars, going to have a bit of chat about that, and other Liverpool debates. So we'll talk to you shortly.
Join us in the second half for some more goals.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of Parlay with Padraig Paudcast. I'm joined by Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Mean Machine star Jake Abraham. We've been refueled and fed and watered for the last 50 minutes, all ready to get stuck into it again. So what I was going to just move on to there before we get into your acting career was just, I suppose, could you maybe speak a bit about how you're Scouse and not English? I know that's a big thing for you, that you don't consider yourself English, you're from the People's Republic of Liverpool. And what does being a Scouser mean to you personally?
It means fiercely proud, loyal to the city and to individual, not like us, history, heritage, arts, music, the docks, that maybe those are the words I'd use.
Yeah. So like it's like Cork people, you're very proud. Liverpool people are very proud where they come from. Scousers.
Yeah, we are.
You're proud of who you are, and which is great, you know. Like I suppose, as I was mentioning earlier, the multicultural side of things, like it's a working class melting pot of a city. Like, you know, you've got like a lot of Irish, Welsh, Scottish, West Africans, West Indians, Afro-Caribbean,
Chinese,
all is Chinese,
Asian, Pakistani, just now a lot of people from Sri Lanka, you know, everywhere mainly because of the docks, isn't it? You know, it brought so many people here.
So just about the Liverpool docks and the importance they played in Liverpool as a city there, Jake. There's a book by Nicky Alt again called Culture Capital.
This is the Nicky Alt podcast, isn't it? You get such a mention in this.
No, I'm a big fan of Nicky's books, and the Culture Capital is another example, one of those. But there's a short 4-line poem that an old Liverpool sailor called Jimmy Fagan wrote. A 4-line poem. I'm going to read it out here. When my Liverpool life is done and it's time to bury me, take me down to the old pier head and throw me in the sea. No ship life coffin in the ground was ever meant for me, because my salt-sprayed river Mersey is where I'll spend eternity.
It's lovely, that.
Quite nice.
Really nice, though.
Yeah. And he was just saying that the salt in the river Mersey is like the salt in your chips. You know, it's just
it's the lifeblood of the city. It's what brought all this great talent and culture and you know, all this. It made Liverpool what it is today, and I can see it at the back of there, just going across. Yeah, the salt in your Scouse and the salt in your chips. In that chips, yeah. You can if you look hard enough in my backdrop there, you can see Paddy's wigwam as well. I just can see it right along the back of the top. You can see the Mersey, the lifeblood of the city. I'm just going to read out just a paragraph which I think is very funny about the sailors as well.
in Liverpool, and I suppose just the travelling guys coming over on the docks, that Liverpool girls and the humour allied to the intoxicating smell of the Mersey. I would go as far as to say that the mixture of these three things were the early drunken sailors' Viagra and a massive shot in the arm for Liverpool's growing population. It seemed at times that every time Sailor Joe arrived back in Liverpool, a new pregnancy was announced. Families the size of football teams with 3 or 4 substitutes became the norm, which I think is quite funny. But like anyone who's been to Liverpool, has had positive things to say about it. In my experience, anyway, like the salt of the earth, you're warm people, and obviously those sailors agreed that they stayed.
Yeah.
That they stayed in the city.
Mm-hmm. Just referring back to that paragraph, it doesn't smell anymore, the Mersey. It's been dredged and cleaned, and it used to be a lot. It's a whole story about this River Mersey, but it's such a pleasure to go down there now. The whole area is reinvented itself. It's the Albert Dock is like the first floating dock. It was the first dock of its kind. People came all over the world to copy it. It's just all down that area now is amazing. It used to be full of character and derelict when I was a kid. Now it's pristine, beautiful. It's back to the way it should be.
Good stuff. No, it's a beautiful city visually as well. The city centre and the library building and all that. Like it's very pretty. City.
Oh, the architecture, all that architecture is beautiful. Yeah. It's got so many firsts, Liverpool. It was if you speak to Frank Carlisle, a historian friend of mine, there's so many firsts in Liverpool. The first air conditioning system, St George's Hall, our museum, the 2 cathedrals. It was the biggest enclosement. Just so many firsts.
And I think someone said before, the DNA in Liverpool has been harvested by Irish immigration from during the famine. As Ireland long rallied against British rule ourselves, and I suppose just as an example of how that's carried through to Liverpool, like the national anthem was booed at the 2012 Cup final at Wembley, Liverpool and Chelsea.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, Chelsea fans booed the Hillsborough minute silence the month before as well.
Yes, they did. Yeah. We've been at it with Chelsea. I remember going to the match, and you used to get that football banter, and it was at Chelsea's ground. I was with Paul McGann actually. Paul McGann, a few of us, and Chelsea fans started singing "In Your Liverpool Slums," in you look in the dustbin, and as an answer back, all in unison, Scouse, all the Scouse end started singing, "Thank you very much for paying our gyros. Thank you very much. Thank you very much." And then you get a lot of that. I used to get a lot of that going down to London working, and then you get all that banter. Why do we call Scousers mushrooms? Because you all live in shit and you've got big heads, So that's that makes us even more fiercely proud. It makes us all unite. That brings more solidarity to us. Yeah. It just makes us even more, because it's a lie. It's all a lie. All that, your car will get robbed and all that crap. Like we were talking about the play, that scene where there's 2, Tom and Jerry are minding cars at the ground, and they say, "Well, can I mind your car, mate? 50 pence to mind your car, please, mate." And the fellow goes, "It's all right, man. I've got a Rottweiler in the back." "Yeah, but can he put fires out?" Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's just been going on for years, hasn't it? All that fallacy.
So one of the sayings that I mentioned Margaret Simon earlier on about the Toxteth Riots, and one of her sayings about Liverpool, which I think is very poignant, is the magic of Liverpool is that it isn't England. We are global, and we've learned to tolerate and respect each other's traditions, and as such, we are a national asset. So if only the rest of the country would agree with that and treat you as such, it would be a lot better, I'd say.
Yeah.
And there was just a poster which I sent over to which I sent over to a couple of mates in Liverpool, and you included in that, which I think kind of sums up Liverpool as a city.
Yeah.
And it's going to read that out there. Liverpool is not part of England in the way that New York is not part of America. It's more Welsh, more Irish, more Scottish, more exotically international and defiantly local. An outpost of defiance, determination, and scouring kindness, reluctantly connected to the English mainland. More of an island set in a sea of dreams that's forever changing and taking shape in the imagination. It's very well put. But on the one, on the copy that I received, the one I had, I'm going to show a picture of that.
It had the Union Jack on it.
Yeah, and I actually had to crop it out because I think it defeated the whole purpose of the poster, what I was trying to get across. So just explain why they don't have any feet in that one.
Okay.
So it wasn't pure negligence by me there, like, you know.
No, it was a necessity. Yeah. Okay.
I suppose you're the embodiment of Liverpool culture in the sense that you've Irish and African heritage. You're both sides of it, and with a name like Jacob Abraham, you're an Isaac middle name away from a Jewish full house, you know, as well.
Jacob. My name is Jacob Joseph Abraham. Well, it's a funny story that when I was younger, I borrowed my mum's car. I just passed my test, and I wasn't insured. It's in the past now, done that before. And it was a rainy day on the cobbles. It was a Molyneux Road, used to be. And I remember slamming on the brakes, and because a car had slammed on in front of me, and I just skidded in slow motion, hit this car. And I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? And I was prepared. That my plan was to say, sorry mate, can I pay for the damage? And please don't get the police. So as I got out of the car, this rabbi on Kenny, a rabbi got out of the car with the full curls, Jewish hat, you know, the big hat. I went, you're going to have killed me. What are you doing? And I was going, mate, please, don't get the police. Let me pay for the car. No, I want the police. And he went, what's your name? He got his pen and paper. He went, what's your name? I went, Jacob Joseph Abraham. And he went, hey, nobody's been killed. So, and let me go. You know what I mean? It wouldn't even pay for the car. Yeah. So, with the Jewish name comes from my grandfather had probably a Okamba. It's not unpronounceable, you know. So his first name was Abraham, and apparently he changed his name to Jacob Joseph when he came to England. And his family, he was from Biafra originally, not Nigeria. Now, Biafra was annexed by Nigeria and was starved out. This was over oil. And my granddad had to flee because they were killing a lot. There was a lot of village tribal warfare going on, and they were quite well to do. Not that doesn't mean he was just a very well to do family in the bush, and they all got money together and sent him over to get away from the war and the Biafra war to Liverpool, and here I am.
I was just thinking there when you're on about the Jewish rabbi that you can just imagine having that conversation in a bank. Don't worry about the $500,000 you overdue in your mortgage. Just put that onto some Catholics' interest rate there.
Yeah, you're blaming on the Catholics.
Yeah.
Right.
So
like we always do.
So I suppose I just want to.
Sorry to any Jewish people out there, but it's all good fun.
Yeah, I would just when the lads call Shylock at home as well, we'd laugh like
Shylock. Yeah, we call him, we brother that. No, then Shylock.
Did you know that
pound the flesh?
They're on about stopping that in schools because it was anti-Semitic.
Yeah, well,
so which it is, to be fair, like, but yeah.
Yeah, no. But we all get it. You're going to give everyone, like Frank Zappa says, no one is out of my gunshot. Everyone gets it, so you know everyone gets the fair share of it. And I'm black, Jewish, Irish. What more do you want?
One thing I can never when you're on about stereotypes and all that and that, but one thing that really annoys me is when Irish Man United fans call Liverpool people and the city bin dippers.
They call them what?
Bin dippers.
Yeah, that's another thing that makes us even more fiercely loyal. Or watch your wallets, Scouse. The car's going to be on bricks when you go outside. It's just a load of crap. Yeah. And then people come to Liverpool, they fall in love, get married, and he'd never leave the city. That's what happens to those type of people. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so multicultural. But I suppose the point that we're making about that is that Liverpool, they're mocking poverty, despite the fact that a large percentage of Irish people immigrated because of poverty and the famine, and that they're kind of mocking their own heritage. So I've had a lot of it. Yeah. Well,
the Irish question there. Yeah. So which was also engineered by the English. But there's another there's a mate of mine, Frank Carlisle. He's ill. I'd like to hope he gets better. Or he is getting better now. He does a lot of talks and tours in Liverpool. And there's this story about, we were going to write it about, they used to lie to them and tell them, in the song, used to lie and think they were going to New York. They paid the penny, and they actually dropped them at Liverpool. So yeah, they must have come on the shows going, that's not the Empire State Building. That's it. Although that wasn't built there.
That's the Liverboard, like it's Lime Street Station there, like. But the bin dipping thing is
yes, it's low.
It's mocking poverty, like, and
yeah, it's disgusting. It's low.
Look, and I lived in Manchester myself, in Stretford for a summer, and to be honest, the place is a toilet, like, to be honest about it. To call it spade.
Is it raining? It's raining as well. It never stops raining. Well, that's the city isn't regeneration. The city, you have to keep. You're just underfunded. The north in general is so.
Yeah, but I think, like, I lived in Manchester. I didn't find, now maybe I wasn't there long enough, I don't know, but I didn't find Manchester people terribly friendly myself. I didn't find them. I find Liverpool people a lot more friendly and open. And someone said once, Liverpool is a Celtic city and Manchester is Anglo-Saxon, and I would agree with that.
Makes sense, yeah. It does make sense. Although I've got really good Manchester mates, I don't know, they're just good lads. So.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I know there are, but I suppose kind of.
Yeah, it's the city in general. You mean, yeah.
When the recession hit and Liverpool was being managed to decline, your man Norman Tebbit, the Tory, came out and said Liverpool to get on their bikes to get out to find jobs.
Yeah.
And this Tory MP in Bournemouth, John Butterfield, he describes Scousers as dropouts pursuing parasitical lifestyles for living off the area and taking the jobs off locals. Despite the fact that they were taking the advice to go on their bikes and look for work, like.
Yeah. Although it was being totally engineered, they were making statements like that just to rub it in. I mean, it's like, it reminds me of this government saying that artists are going to have to re-educate, retrain into other jobs. How dare some politician tell me how to retrain, tell me to, and it's always the arts that gets in the neck. And Liverpool is just overflowing with great musicians, great actors, great singers, great writers. It's the only way out sometimes, isn't it? It's for kids. It's the way, your worst nightmare is your kids' only option would be join the army, sell drugs, or be a musician or an actor, and that's and when I was young, that was the options. That's how bad it was in the 80s.
Like, I've seen Boys from the Black stuff as well, and all that, and that's a pretty grim. It paints a bleak picture of Thatcherism and what it was.
Yeah,
like in the 80s.
Although we got a bit, Scousers ourselves got a bit tired of that all, isn't it? Which was moaning. That's why, I think a lot of the Play for Today stuff and a lot of, Alan Breeze is a great writer. I've worked with Alan a lot, and I love the man. He's great, and it's just, you write what you know, and a lot of really good, like Jimmy McGovern, great Liverpool writers, they write what was going on, so it's not far from the truth. Although it's dramatised, it's not far from the truth. Never.
100%, yeah. So I suppose I want to move on there now to your actual career itself and the act. So how did you get into acting, Jake, and what was the
Well, I tell you how I got into acting. I did a play at school. Now, drama and music were taken off us in third year, seniors, and I couldn't believe that. I didn't know this. I love music and drama. Excuse me. I love music and drama at school. And I remember the teacher saying, this is the last lesson and we're going to do a play. And I went, what about next year? No, there's no music and drama in the third years. So they even took that off us, you know. So we did a play anyway. And I played Nancy and Oliver. And my teacher went, are you going to go for it? And I went, you're going to drag up and stuff? Oh, yeah. So I lent my mother's clothes. And I said, because my dad's ex-ABA's champion boxer when he was young. He was a man's man. And please, Mum, don't bring me dad. So I come out on stage with the Mars brow and I looked in the audience and my dad's like that. But it was fun. Apparently it was great. And my drama teacher then took me to the Everyman Youth Theatre. And then my dad took me down. I had an audition and I got into acting that way. And it was just like a breath of fresh air. It was brilliant.
Yeah, good stuff.
So and then I worked on the main stage at the Everyman, got an agent, and then unfolded from there.
So I suppose the vast majority of people, and I suppose even I recognise you day one from this, that you are recognised and well known for your role as Dean in a Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. So how did that come about? How did you manage to get that? How did that come about?
Well, originally it was going to be this is what Guy Ritchie told me. It was going to be wanted me and Drew Schofield to play, and I love Drew. He's one of my favourite actors, and I work with him a lot at Royal Court. He's a close friend, and I didn't know this until after Guy had told me that, and Drew said, "Yeah, I have the script," but he didn't do it for. I think one of his kids was born. So anyway, I got called in to read. He'd seen something I'd done. I think Guy Ritchie. I read it was a Pinewood Studios audition. Didn't think much of it. They were trying to get the money. I had the audition. Didn't hear anything for ages because obviously they couldn't get the funding. Next minute, I was on the set and having banter with Lenny McLean, you know, people like that. Yeah. So I bumps into me and Victor Maguire did it in the end, obviously. And I remember just coming out of costume, it was the first day shoot, and he was this big man, this like mountain man with his sheepy on. And I thought, is he security or something? You know, looking at, all right, son, all right, short of what? Who you playing? I'm playing at Dean. Yeah, who you playing? You know, to Victor. I was, are you in it? Yeah, of course I'm fucking in it, you fucking Scouse and all that. So we had loads of fun with him. I loved him, man. He was great fella. Yeah. Yeah, short, used to call me short stuff. Right, short stuff.
Yeah. He was a fairly feared bare knuckle boxer.
Yeah, well, I didn't know how. But I didn't. It's not like I researched the man, you know, because it wasn't as if Uber was my dad. I didn't really know, so I was like, "Shut up, you! Tell him to shut up." And he was like, "Yeah, you know, don't be sharing me that." You know, because I come from a family like that. You know, my dad was a bit like him, you know, and, a bit. So yeah, I got on great with him. Yeah, and then I remember being at the rap party in Soho, and he was just sitting in the corner quiet, and I said, "This Lenny got a cob on or something, what's wrong?" And he had stomach cancer, and no, he's got cancer. And I remember one day going, "I'm a little bit tired today." And thinking back, it must have been the chemo, and I was going, "What's wrong with you?" And he's going, "Yeah, I'm not too well today. I'm not well." And I didn't even click that he could have been really ill because he was such a big guy, big presence.
Yeah. He seems scary enough, all right. I can imagine you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of him. I worked with a guy, Don, in one of my old jobs, and he actually worked in the Historia nightclub when Lenny was the head bouncer, and he was saying you had to tone down the workplace banter with him. Like he couldn't really take the piss out of him that much, you know. But Don as well, if you're listening, Don would be kind of Anglo-Caribbean. He's like a Cockney, but he's Jamaican.
Yeah.
Jamaican.
And he had the attitude, because he wasn't that sharp. So if your wit was a bit sharp, then he will shut your mouth. You know? So I liked him. I think he was He's a gentleman as well.
You helped him with his lines as well, didn't you? You were saying.
Yeah. I've just said this before, but his line in is infamous for his removal of digits. You know what he does? But he said, infamous. And I went, Lenny, it's infamous. I went, what? Yeah, oh yeah, good boy, keep an eye on me. And he kept doing it. He did it on set. And I went, Lenny, infamous. And Guy went, what? And as he looked around, the guy she went, I quite like the way you say it. And so it's been kept into this day. And the film's dedicated to him as well. So I just think he would have been doing all the Bond films. He just died as his career was taken off. It was quite sad. Yeah.
No, he played the role brilliantly. And I just picked out a couple of audio clips from the show there that I'm just going to play, and I see your reaction to them as well, you know. And it reminds me, I used to work in a call center, and we were been given feedback in our calls, like they'd play the recording back your voice. You're like, I know what I said, just get to the point. Like. but just in this case, just for the people who haven't seen, but I picked kind of, we'll go through them there, but two of the ones that I've picked, you're on the phone, which is quite apt because I recorded it on my phone for the telly, and I'm conscious I'm conscious of the old copyright. My new C word is copyright at the moment, so I'm careful of that.
Don't say it.
Guy, if you're watching, this is for fair use. Jake is analysing it, and I'm not going to make any money out of this anyway. So
well, I didn't make any money on Lockstock, so we're all equal there. Thanks, Guy.
A bit of context to the scenes there, rather than playing them. That Jake played and his friend Victor, Dean, and Gary were two stereotypical scally Scousers, as in your own words, to quote, rob post offices and steal cars. And
it could have been worse actually, but we toned it down.
We were commissioned by the man we just mentioned there, Barry the Baptist, who was playing in McLean, to rob these rich guns from a stately home. And the robbery was interrupted by one of the guys that they were told, no, it's the butler, there'd be no staff. Your friend got a bullet hole in his Harry Enfield Scouser wig. So at this scene I'm about to play is when you're on the phone to Barry telling him about this, and he's not overly empathetic.
Lenny, if you can hear me, get back in the car now, mate, okay? Barry? Barry!
It gets me like fucking Scouse.
Well, I can thank my mate John Kelly for that. He's a DJ mate of mine, and he always used to say, "Something shandy drinking bastards." Yeah. So
very good. No, it's a good scene.
It was improvised, that scene. That was the last shot of the film, in a phone box. And Guy said, "Can you say something? Say something bad. Get angry and say something about it." And I was saying much worse than that. But that's a bit too much now. And I was, well, you've been getting called Scouse cunts and all kinds of. What kind of? So I gave him that bitch, and he went, "Yeah, that'll do." So
great stuff. This is the outtake of the movie, but you've given the guns, it transpired you sold the wrong guns anyway, because there's much
confusion. We sold guns for nothing.
So basically in this scene, Barry is there collecting the guns, and it wasn't what it said on the tin, and there's a funny line at the end for the outtake.
It wasn't what it said on the tin.
Yeah, so we go now.
There were two old guns there. Where are they now? Not in the cabinet, there wasn't. There was a couple of old Avalok muskets the butler was carrying, but they were ours. We sold them. We got hands on them, sharpish. They were ours. We had to sell them. I'm not fucking interested. If you don't want to be counting the fingers you haven't got, or sharing a bed with the Antichrist, I suggest you get those guns. Quick! Alright. You get ice cream while you're at it.
That's how lovely he was. You know what I mean? He was deathly terrifying then. And I remember leaning back and he'd go, get him, because he'd come from nowhere. And then he would get his ice cream as well. He was a sweetheart.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
So the last bit of this we're just going to play was when you're ringing Nick the Greek, who sold the guns to try and get them back. And it's kind of a three-way scene there, and you're about to dance with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's no way to answer the phone. Oh, is that you, Dave? No, it's Lord fucking Lucian. If you think it is, what can I do for you? You know those guns I sold you? I need them back. Not likely, I'm afraid. I don't think I'll be seeing them again. Well, I've got the money to pay for them. I'm sure you do, but I don't think you understand. I ain't going to be seeing them or the guns again. Can't get them. If we can't get them, we can't get them. Well, you'll have to fucking get them. Look, we made a fucking deal for everything inside the cabinet. Inside, out, fucking side. I don't give a shit. You get those guns, because if you don't... Yeah, Buzzard, on what? Have you heard of Barry Lonsdale? Otherwise known as Akki Up with an Asset Harry? Well, this is James Bond. Need to know time. When you dance with the devil, you wait for the song to stop. Know what I mean?
It's brilliant.
When you dance with the devil, that's like you could put it on a record, could you? On a dance track or something. Yeah. That was another one, improvised. We're all in the same room, you know. We're all in different, and the set was like, I'm in a corner, and that's all it was, and that's why Victor's really close to me listening to the phone, because the set was like this big. Yeah, it was a great time doing that film. And when you don't know, when you're making something like that, you just don't know what it was going to become. It didn't get a distribution deal for a year and a half. It was sitting on a shelf, and I think someone like, funny, and it sounds bad, it was someone like Tom Cruise who'd seen it and was bandying it about, because Sting put the money up and he was passing it around, and Dustin Hoffman came to the premiere and he loved it, and it was big actors who got it distributed, and they were asking for money. They needed money they were desperate for financing for it, and it became one of the biggest films of that decade. It's crazy. Yeah. It was the only decent English gangster film since The Long Good Friday. I'd say. You look a bit like Bob Hoskins, mate. You don't look at him there. Let me put my glasses on.
Who framed Roger Rabbit, like, what is
it? You could be his son. Yeah, anyway.
I don't know about
that. It was great. There was no money. We were all sitting in one little caravan there was no Winnebagos or trailers, darling. It was just little, and we all just clubbed together, and everyone. And I can remember Lenny McLean going, I fucking love this script. This is a great fucking script. He wasn't talking about the script. He loved it because it's got a rhythm to it. You know, because Guy he was dead particular about the way you would say, even if you were improvising, he'd say, give it that, like, a little bit of a sing tone to it. You know, it was his vision. It was just so he directed, produced, and cast it as well. So, you know, he's got a casting credit. Yeah.
Fast paced and punchy, like, you know.
Yeah, it's a gritty, fast paced.
Was that scene about the infamous line? Was that the scene where he was meant to say the infamous?
Do you know Harry Hatchett, infamous for his removal of digits?
Yeah.
But he went infamous for his removal of digits.
They must have, I don't think they play that.
There was loads of moments like that in it that made the film. And Richie was really open to ideas, and that's what Priscilla made it, I think, you know.
Very good. Yeah, it sounds like it was a good movie to work on in terms of flair was encouraged and all that. So
yeah,
good experience.
Guy was like really open to ideas, which made it all the better. And actors believed in themselves and him. So yeah, it was all the better for it.
How about Vinnie Jones? What was he like?
Great. Well, because I've known Vinnie Jones through football and the you know, the rivalry between Liverpool and
Wimbledon
and that stuff, and the FA Cup and stuff. And So I thought he was going to be, but he was lovely. He was the first time I met him. Went, Jake, my grandmother's from Bootle in Liverpool, and he was really nice. He took us out the dogs. He would buy lottery tickets for everyone. He was just a lovely lad. Yeah, I like him.
Stuff, yeah. I have a friend who work with my best friends at work. Him, her nan was in the Imperial Hotel on the South Mall in Cork, and Vinnie was over at a stag party with a few of his friends. And the language was getting a bit industrial, they're getting a bit boisterous, and they were just having a laugh or whatever. But Vinnie
likes a party.
But Vinnie stopped them when they were cursing. He was like, "Not in front of the little lady."
Yeah,
like he's very respectful. So Kim and her family love Vinnie Jones. So
yeah, he's lovely.
Shout out to Kim there for reference. I'd say you got quoted, your lines quoted at you a lot. I'd say, did you, after Lock Stock?
Yeah, I get it shouted out of cars at me as they're going past, and I know the lines because people quote them to me constantly. It's a really, when I think about it, it's lovely, isn't it? You know, that people will stop me. I get stopped all, because of that film. I get stopped still now. People are, oh, yo, where do I know you from? But young and another generation who weren't even born when it was made love the film and Lock Stock. They call me Lock Stock. My name's not Jake Abraham. It's Lock Stock. All right, Lock Stock. So it's quite proud of that.
Being an antiques expert and
yeah, what the fuck do we know about antiques?
So moving on from Lock Stock, Mean Machine. It was another big role. We fulfilled one of my dreams doing a match commentating role in Prison versus Guards match. And it was a great line. Trojan evades Mars and brilliantly. If only could have done that tonight, he got nicked. It was a great line.
That was improvised again, because we went back into post-production and re-recorded most of the commentating. I previously did it with another actor and it didn't really work out. So Jason Fleming coming out and I did it again. It was great to be reunited with all the lads. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. The film crew was all the same film crew. And again, we were allowed to do our thing. I remember commentating, and Vinnie was on the pitch, and he was, because there was no football there. We were just, a lot of it was just commentating, and we did it in the studio so we could see the game. And Vinnie was up by the goal. I mean, Vinnie, you're going to get a nosebleed up there. You've never been up that end of the pitch in your life. What are you doing up there? Yeah. And we had the ball, yeah. And we also did that ode to Norwegian commentator. Yeah. I think the Margaret Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Throwing a bit of Walton Jail in there as well. So
yeah, Walton, Nick, Liverpool, yeah, good stuff. Yeah. That was like a Lock Stock reunion. A lot of similar actors were in there, weren't they? Like there's a cast. 51st Date. You played Meatloaf's bodyguard, and you got shot in the foot by Meatloaf. So did you manage to get the bullet holes out of your Adidas Gazelles? Or
I think Meatloaf shot himself in the foot, not me. I couldn't wait to work with Meatloaf, and it was hard work. That's what he was, hard work. I just don't. I think maybe he may have been struggling with it. I don't know. He was in Liverpool. I just think he wanted to get. I couldn't wait to leave the city. But love this city. Samuel L. Jackson loved the place. He's been back. He brought Richard Roundtree. We were having a drink, and I walked in the toilet, and I looked at Iran, and I looked in his shaft standing next to me. I mean, all right, what are you doing here? He went, Samuel L. Jackson brought me over, he loves it here at just the end of the film. And then proceeded to go shake himself off and walked out the bar, yeah. So I couldn't believe it. So, and that's, everybody loved Samuel L. Jackson, and he loved the city.
He's a big Liverpool fan as well, so.
Yeah.
I was saying to you last night when we were doing the prep that I think that script has so much more potential for you as a character, Jake, that, it must have been tough playing an American in a film set in Liverpool, you know, when you're a very good actor from Liverpool itself, you know.
Yeah.
But if I had control of that script, I would have put you as Samuel L. Jackson's cousin. Brought you out to Granby Street and the Caribbean shops and stuff, you know, and introduced.
That's more like it. Yeah.
That would have been a more fitting role for you. I would.
Brilliant. Yeah. I would have been his Liverpool connection. Yeah, that would have been. I'd like that. Write it. You have to write it.
Oh yeah.
Just do the synopsis and I'll pass it to Sam.
I'm sure you'll only charge a small commission as well for that, of course.
Yeah, a small fee. Yeah.
Stuff. No, I just think that movie. I think I watched it research for the podcast there, and it had a lot more potential. Like I think, you know, Robert Carlyle's accent was a lot better in Scouse and Cracker, like we were saying, and
he's amazing in Cracker, Robert Carlyle.
And he's amazing in that movie as well, to be fair. But
he's brilliant. But I just think he really got into the Scouse thing for Cracker. And you know, we all get old. We all want to. It's the pension. It was, you know, maybe it was. You're right. It was directed by a Chinese guy who had an interpreter. You'd have to get his direction to somebody else. Although that shouldn't be a problem. And it is what it is.
Yeah. But no, it's I just wish in hindsight that, you know, that they could have given you a role more befitting. Justice was another big role you had. I watched that as well in a night. You played a pretty nasty bit of work in that character, which was very. I was kind of used to seeing you in kind of lovable rogue type of roles, but actually see you as a proper scumbag was different. So that was a heavy role you played in that, kind of a local gangster kind of pimp. But
that was
Judy Comer.
That was Jodie Comer was in it. And that was Jimmy McGovern production. I think he don't know who he wrote it. He script editor and production, and Colin McEwen, and the character's called Jake Little. I thought, thanks a lot, lads. I mean, there's a bit of jokes, you know, a bit of banter there. But that was a great 6 episodes, and it went out in the afternoon for some reason. It couldn't find its slot. I think it's really good. I think it's, you know, the piece itself as a whole, it's quite good. Yeah, it goes on.
No, it is very enjoyable. I enjoyed watching it, and it is worth watching. You can get it on YouTube, guys. The pièce de résistance is Liverpool History play, which you come to in a second. But before that, your 2 weeks in Croatia, your holiday in Croatia for Game of Thrones
holiday. Yeah. Well, because what did you say about it?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I ended up on the cutting room floor. It was.
I was saying that you might be in a few deleted scenes in one of the box sets.
One day you might find them. Yeah. So I'd auditioned originally for another part a while ago, and I didn't get that kick myself, but it wasn't that big then. And then I got a call back for a different episode, and that was playing a Valerian merchant, and I had to learn the Valerian. It was all in Valerian, this made-up language, but it's a proper language. And it was a nightmare learning it, because it's a secret script. You don't get it until you leave. You're at the airport, so you don't. What do they call them? People who give scripts out before the spoiler alert. Yeah. So I didn't get the script until I was on the plane, and I was trying to learn it, and I looked across me, and he was a woman doing the same thing in terror, like I was. And I went, "Are you playing my wife? Am I playing your husband?" And she went, "Are you going to?" It was because are you going to do Game of Thrones? I went, "Yeah." So we sat next to each other and we started learning the script. And I got there, and it was like when I first started working as an actor, the budgets used to be massive. You know, 5 cameras everywhere. It was, and big crew. Now everything's condensed down. You can do, you know, the cameras are small, never mind the crew. And they were up a mountain, and I had a guy run up, got me bag, run all the way up the mountain. Another guy took me up. This was just when I got there for the first day. It was the biggest job I've ever been on, and the hotel was like, I was in an apartment, and I didn't even get used. It was a massive job and a great holiday. And if you did the scene, they never used it on the company floor. And my agent made me feel better. He said, "Jake, they always shoot 200% of what they use. I thought, no, it just wasn't good enough to cut it out.
I'm sure that wasn't the case at all there, but at least you got a 2-week holiday out of it, like, you know. So
yeah, it was beautiful. In Split in Croatia, we spent 2 weeks there.
You met Sean Bean.
No, but I've worked with Sean Bean before. I did Sharp with Sean Bean in Croatia, in Russia, in the Crimea. Sorry, not Croatia, the Crimea. I did Sharp's Gold. Spent months out there with him. Lovely fella. So I'd worked with Sean before. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Nice stuff.
It's a show that I never really kind of got into that much, but I know it's very popular. But I think kind of Jon Snow as a character kind of really annoyed me, to be honest. And even though everyone loves him, I just don't understand it. He kind of turned me off the show. But
he's female eye candy. That's what he is. Yeah.
It could be
but it's the apparently it's the writing and the way it was one of the first things to be really gratuitous and subject matter that hadn't been dealt with before, and killing your main character, cutting characters that people loved and they'd just be killed, and that was the first things I heard about it. But it was great people and a great job to work on.
Great stuff, yeah. And it is a brilliant. It just even though you didn't get cast in the end, to actually be part of that project is obviously a great honor. And as you said, you get the credit for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of credit.
So just going back, I suppose, how we first met initially to the You'll Never Walk Alone history play in the Gaiety Theatre. So this is a history of Liverpool in musical format. And it kind of tells the history of Liverpool from the very beginning up to the present day in kind of in music format and the character you played in that, it was like a family who I think was a granddad died or something like that. And
well, we play our great grandfathers right through, and so one of our fathers, there's Tom and Jerry, and they own a pub, and they've got 2 kids, and his wife Lindsay Germain plays in. Who thanks Lindsay for putting flowers on my dad's grave today, and he didn't even tell us it was a beautiful thing to do, which is what she did today. Anyway, Lindsay is the wife, and I'm the mate, so I knock around with them to get free bevies in the pub, basically. So, and then the story is we go right back to 1892 and John Holding, and we start from there. But we use all the old Liverpool shanty songs, all the sailor songs, and we use all the Christians, the Lars, right to. We use the music as the time and the music, the place. It's a brilliant show, and I was so thankful to be in that. I've been everywhere with it, and I met you, mate. So and it's just I've met so many lovely people through that play.
A real highlight, like.
Yeah, it's one of the best. And I've worked at the Royal National Theatre, darling, and that is a place to do that. Yeah. And you, as you said, I thought a musical football that can't work. It works. It really does, because the music's good, and we have a live band on it. So it's the setup is the bar, the pitch, the cup, and a live band here, and it's just takes you on a journey, doesn't it, mate? It takes you on a journey.
Yeah, look, it really made me feel very proud to be a Liverpool fan, and I immersed myself a lot more in Liverpool's culture after reading. It was inspirational, like, and you were saying that, like, you brought families together, like
that's the thing. It's the history of the club, not even the football. It's just the history that it's rich in history. And a lot of people just say to me and my dad never talk. My dad never talks to me. But it's about father and sons and families, and it's about your father passing on the team to you. It's given to you, your support. Your dad goes, "Come on, son," he takes you to the match. Then you grow up and you take your son to the match, and you're hoping that he's going to grow up and do the same. And that's the premise of it. So this guy said to me, "I never speak to my dad," and it hasn't brought us close together, because after the show, he was saying, "Yeah, I used to do that, son. My dad took me, and we used to get a ticket for the boys' pen and then bunk into the cop, because the boys' pen was right next door to the cop, and walk the wall." And these are, and that's just amazing for the show to do that. A play does that, brings families together. And actually, people used to say, we laughed cried and sang together. Families come crying, men crying, over the Hillsborough stuff and that.
Well, it was very touching, like the Hillsborough, like you were saying about Lindsay's speech, about the son who
John Paul.
Yeah, John Paul with the cans of Pepsi, where she gave him a can of Pepsi when he was going, and she had one can of Pepsi for when he came back, but she still had a can of Pepsi because he never came back.
Yeah, he never drank the other. I've still got the other one. Yeah, he drank one going. I've still got the other can. Yeah, it's so touching that, and we sing through. Bookended by that is Black is the Colour, and it's just people just it's great. It's been really touching, and Lindsay does that speech so well. Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is very moving, all right, and just even the Heysel as well was dealt with very tastefully as well, like kind of
being dead and like the Tom and Jerry, fans didn't know what had happened. They didn't know when he died. It was a taxi driver who told them. You could see his eyes in the middle. He was looking at them taking them back to the airport. What's the matter, mate? Many dead. Many people dead. Heavy. Just go to a football game and don't come home one day.
It's horrendous.
What's that? We can blame Maggie Thatcher again. She's always in there somewhere, isn't she? And the plight of Liverpool.
I really loved there was two bits in particular that I liked was when Tom rang up Lindsay in the play, like, and said, "Will you bring my passport down to Lime Street Station?"
Yeah,
like we're going to, because that was a common thing back in the day to get your passport to Lime Street.
I've got my passport. He forgot his passport.
Yeah,
at Lime Street, and you meet your bird.
And then
Bird's bringing me passport, and she hits him with it. Are you going away again? Because he hasn't told her, and then he has to say, "Oh, listen, bring me passport." That's a great scene too. Yeah,
and here's your passport. The rest of your stuff is in the front garden. Kind of a
yeah. and then another great scene is the Austrian ticket collector. Tickets, please.
Yeah.
Like the Nazi ticket collector. Oh. Yeah.
Was it when you said, "Can I have your ticket?" Bitter, and like, I'm not bitter, mate. Like,
Yeah, I'm not bitter, mate. I'm a Liverpool supporter. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. At the time, it was the day before we beat Man City 3-2 with the Coutinho goal, and it looked like we're going to win the league. Well, obviously, we know what happened after we didn't win it, but singing we're going to win the league, it was a spiritual.
Yeah.
As if you looking out and seeing all the cops. It's like the cop with all the Liverpool flags that were in the.
It used to be like that. It was everybody would have scarves, banners, and you'd look out, and it'd be the last, walk along, and it'd be like looking at the cop, honest. And the cop can sing, by the way, because they're on a Pink Floyd record. Did you know? I don't know how many people know that. I always say that, but the cop can sing really well, and that's what's great about the play. We stop singing and listen to the crowd singing in harmony. It's fantastic.
So it was a running joke between myself and Pat and Mary that it's been booked. The play has been booked more times than Tommy Smith, but at the stage it's been booked more times than Vinnie Joe. And just had an email off from there. It's been rescheduled to July 2022.
Yeah,
but I got an email, and this is hilarious, for Ryanair. I booked a flight to go over from Cork to Liverpool on 24th of April. And I got an email from Ryanair to say that they'd rescheduled the flight. So they put the return flight before the outgoing one.
Yeah.
So essentially, just to phrase that, my flight was from Cork to Liverpool at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning and flying back the Sunday evening. But they changed it. So the return flight was before, so it was like 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. So I would have had to book a new flight from Cork to Liverpool to be in Liverpool at the time, And I remember saying to you when it came through that you could come, I could give you the flight, you could have a 25-minute holiday and come back in,
Yeah, we could have had a cup of tea in the airport.
So I sent an email to Ryanair explaining that. Well, actually, what happened first was that they rescheduled the return flight to the Tuesday, and I thought everything was fine and everything was sorted. But then they changed it back to what it was. The return flight was before the outgoing one, and I messaged them, and they said, "You're better off just requesting a refund because we can't change the flight in 2 days." And I was like, "Okay, what you're able to do yesterday, though, when you change it to Monday,
Yeah.
you know, or do you think, but anyways, they're better off just requesting a refund. I was like, okay then. But I just got an email today to say that it's been rescheduled to July 2022. So we look forward, hopefully, 2.5 years after it was meant to initially take place. But yeah, hopefully, please God, it'll be definitely put to bed by then, and
yeah,
we'll be able to see live.
I'm sure by the time we get to do it, it'll be a totally new play. We'll have probably wrote another 40 minutes on the end of it. It'll either be 40 minutes longer, or we'll lose a lot of good stuff. But I'm sure it'll be 40 minutes longer.
Hopefully, a couple of more European Cup to talk about. You might have to change the name of the play, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's
as well as
Seven in Heaven, baby. Let's talk about Seven in Heaven. Yeah.
Or what's it? The Hateful Eight. Like Tarantino.
Yeah, the Hateful Eight. Yeah.
If you get 8 European Cups by
yeah.
22,
yeah. Madness, isn't it?
We kind of had a running joke that that by the time we actually go and sit down with the play, that I'd have grey hair like Father Ted or that other actor, Les Dennis, is it?
Oh, Les Dennis. Yeah,
Les Dennis.
Yeah.
And I was looking in the mirror a couple of weeks ago, and I have a bit of salt and pepper there on the lock, so exactly dead right. I will have grey hair by the time, so hopefully. No, look, she's Pat's a very good friend of mine. She's like my Scouse nan, you could say. So I think nice. Herself and Mary, and Scousers make great grandmothers as well. That's one thing.
They make great grandmothers and great Scouse. They make great Scouse as well. And everyone's family Scouse is the best, and theirs is the best. No, ours is the best. I
remember the first time.
It's Irish stew.
Yeah, that was just about to say, like, that myself and Michael were in Liverpool the first time. It was like a big thing. We're going from Scouse now, some Scouse pie and some Scouse.
Yeah.
Irish stew, like, you know, it was like. on that night, that play made us both very. It made us better Liverpool fans. And I remember driving down back from Dublin to Cork, which was that's a tough enough drive at the best of times, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, every time it was, but. We were walking on air, coming down in the car, like it was brilliant.
Oh,
We're made up, as I say. But
it was a great night, wasn't
it? What I loved as well, another great scene on that was when you're pretending to be the Harry Enfield Scousers. You know, I can't sound nice, you know, but
that was excellent. That was fucking great.
Well,
come on.
I do. That was our stag. At the stag there, we dressed up as the Scousers, like, you know, and like any chance we left in, like, you know, but we had to vote.
Yeah, but then we swing it back to, we don't usually talk in this particular vernacular, only when we're down in that London place, you know, which is which used to get a massive laugh. And even things like Lenny's Muzzy would fall off, and the audience is just loving mistakes, don't they? So. Yeah,
I was just going to say that was just the Scouser stereotype, you know. They were like,
but you know, taking it and using it and giving it back our own way. You've got to do it, haven't you? Well, Mark Monaghan, who plays Jerry, my Jerry, or is he son? I don't know. He's the main, you know, he's the leader. He was one of the original Harry Enfield. Mark was one of the original 3.
Oh yes.
So that's obviously why I got put in.
Yeah, that's they're one of my favorite kind of sketches as well in comedy.
Yeah, they're
funny. So look, what I'm going to do now, I was going to sing a song which is very relevant, I think, at the minute. I do wish I was back in Liverpool, maybe not for the football right now, but over the last year, you know, it would have been great to have been back when we won the league and stuff, and you know, it was brilliant. But there's a couple of there's a song, Luke Kelly, you sing it. I wish I was back in Liverpool.
Yeah,
not a song that not many people know. You didn't know it yourself when I first sung it for you.
Yeah.
So just to clarify a couple of things on it, that when we reference the black and tan, that's not the scumbags who pillaged the countryside in the War of Independence.
Yes.
It's a cocktail of beer and stout.
Right.
I'm just going to
sing it, mate. I love this song.
Yeah. Just when they say there's 6 in the bed at the old pier head, that's not some kind of food orgy. It's due to the fact that I suppose that the things were so overcrowded down by the docks that are down by the pier head that time. So we'll give it a.
It's about the slums.
So Black and Tan, by the way, is a beer cocktail with pale ale and dark beer. So beer and stout. So, but I won't be rushing out ordering that in Cork. So I wish I was back in Liverpool, Liverpool town where I was born, where there ain't no trees, no scented breeze, no fields of waving corn. But there's lots of girls with peroxide curls, and the black and tan flows free. There's 6 in a bed by the old pier head, and it's Liverpool town for me. 'Tis 7 long years since I wandered away to sail the wild world o'er. Me very first trip on an old steamship that was bound for Baltimore. I was 7 days sick, and I just couldn't stick that bobbing up and down. So I told them, Jack, you'd better turn back for dear old Liverpool town. I wish I was back in Liverpool, Liverpool town where I was born, where there ain't no trees, no scented breeze, no fields of waving corn. But there's lots of girls with peroxide curls, and the black and tan flows free. There's 6 in a bed by the old pier head, and it's Liverpool town for me. We dug the Mersey tunnel, boys, way back in 33 and a third. Dug an old in the ground until we found an old called Wallasey. Well, the foreman cried, come on outside, the roof has fallen down. Well, I'm telling you, Jack, we all swam back to dear old Liverpool town. I wish I was back in Liverpool, Liverpool town where I was born, where there ain't no trees, no scented breeze, no fields of waving corn. But there's lots of girls with peroxide curls, and the black and tan flows free. There's 6 in a bed by the old pier head, and it's Liverpool town for me. Now, the next verse probably wouldn't pass the political correctness test for 2021, but I'll sing it anyway. There's every race and colour of face, there's every kind of name, but the pigeons on the pier head, they treat you all the same. And if you walk up Upper Parliament Street, you'll get faces black and brown. And I've also seen them orange and green in dear old Liverpool town. I wish I was back in Liverpool, Liverpool town where I was born, where there ain't no trees, no scented breeze, no fields of waving corn. But there's lots of girls with peroxide curls, and the black and tan flows free. There's 6 in a bed by the old pier head, and it's Liverpool town for me.
You know what, Padraig?
Yes.
Me and you in the near future will be buried 2 a.m, arms around each other, singing that song.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Outside 2 meters social distancing, of course. Like.
Yeah.
I don't take. I have a voice like a pop goat. Like I've no illusions about myself there, but I think it'd be a good time to add it into the song there, or to the how it would add well into the podcast. You know.
Yeah. Well, why don't you mention, which you told me, which reminded me of the pigeons in Liverpool.
Oh yes, the pigeons in the pier head. The very first time I was in Liverpool, myself and Michael were we were doing the touristy stuff in Liverpool, and we were doing the Beatles tour and the big wheel by Albert Dock.
Yeah.
I remember Michael saying, I won't say, it was concerned about how high we're up. We were high enough up the top of the wheel, like, And like, imagine if something happened now, like, if the thing said, I said, well, if we die, we've seen Liverpool, like, So that was kind of that was a big thing. I suppose it was an ambition to go to it. But we're walking up to the city centre anyway, and a pigeon gave me a present all over my white Ben Sherman tracky top. and it was an biting cold November afternoon, like, and it wasn't the case we could just take it off and we had the sleeves top around town. It was cold, like, but I got back to the apartment we're in anyway, and they say it's a sign of good luck, and it proved I was right, because we were in the Cop, we won 3-0, and all the 3 goals came in the Cop. That we were a really good find, and it was a Roy Hodgson. Roy Hodgson was manager as well, so that was a collector's item to win a game under him. So.
Yeah, with a seagull shot on your shoulder, you would have won 7-0. So
like your first game.
My first game was didn't you mention this earlier?
Yeah.
My first game was 7-0 when I bumped in. Yeah.
A seagull shot on you for that game, didn't you? Like?
Yeah, it must have been an elephant shit on me that game. Flying elephants, shitted.
But yeah, I'd like to dedicate that song to a fella back home, Jack O'Connor. He won. He's a very good friend of mine. He was very encouraging to me always, and he kind of planted the seed of a podcast inadvertently a few years ago. So, so I just remember I sent up. He won a couple of All Irelands for Limerick in hurling in the Masters level. I think it's like over 40 or something like that. And I sent him up a CD my granddad made, and I put on the envelope Jack O'Connor, multiple All Ireland winner, but County Limerick, like, Lock of Limerick. So I got a good laugh off that.
So your granddad was like my dad. He ran clubs, didn't he? At dance halls and stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. I suppose he opened the dance hall. Sorry, his own father, my great grandfather, opened the dance hall.
It's in your blood.
In West Limerick, like, yeah, and he liked the songs and stories as well himself. But the dance hall, like your dad, I suppose. It was a dance. It was similar enough, I'd say. It was a dance hall, your dad's club as well. But I don't think there was dance hall.
Jamaicans and West Indian people, they call it dance hall. They call it dance hall. They've taken that word and it's used now. Yeah, nice song that. And
it was one of the first in West Limerick at the time, and that was quite similar to your dad running a nightclub for black people in Liverpool. It was outside the norm. It wouldn't have been done that often. They were kind of both pace setters in that sense. My own granddad took over the dance hall after that. My great grandfather met with a lot of resistance from the church at the time.
Yeah,
for opening up a dance hall in
he did, and
it led to a lot. I suppose he condemned by the pulpit, and his cure for chasing home courting couples after the dance had been done as well, and stuff. So he met a lot of resistance, but not everyone would have stood up to the church at the time back in the 1930s in rural Ireland. That was kind of a big no-no to stand up to the church. And the fact that your dad set up a dance hall for black people in Liverpool city centre, that kind of showed a lot of courage as well, like, so.
There's a lot of serendipity between us, isn't there? A lot of connections, mate. It's quite similar. And my grandmother was from the same as yours, isn't it? What was you saying before? Yeah,
your grandmother was from Tralee, County Kerry, and I suppose I'm the son of a Kerry woman as well. My mother is from Castle Island, we both have the Kerry cuteness in us as well, So
yeah. Kerry cuteness. That's what I was at.
Yeah. So corpsing was a term that I was first introduced by listening to you on the Jimmy O podcast. Can you explain it to everyone who hasn't heard of it in live theatre?
Well, it's when another actor just goes into like they are a corpse. They're like the dead. Their eyes just go because they don't know what's next. And usually a good actor will bail them out, or you'll get them out of it. That's when you work with good actors. They get you out of a corpse. Yeah, that's corpse, and when you can just see an actor's eyes just go. It's like a deer in the headlights. It's a corpse. Yeah.
Bambi.
Yeah.
Bambi in the headlights.
Yeah, definitely.
Has it ever happened to you badly on stage?
Yeah, I've corpsed a few times, but I've always been in the privileged situation to be bailed out by really good other actors on stage. But you know, a few times. I mean, I've seen people cause. I've seen all kinds of. I've seen sets fall down, narrowly missing actors by inches. I've seen, pieces of set missing people. I was doing a pantomime with Norman Wisdom once when I was quite young, and this at the end of the scene, this king, he was like a sultan, comes down the stairs, and I'm making a proclamation, and his pants fell down, and he had the jockstrap on. And I thought, what have I got myself into? Yeah, I've seen all kinds happen on stage. My worst one is coming on, getting my guitar and going and playing a chord, and the whole guitar was out of tune. Now, and I previously had a nightmare about that, and it happened to me on stage, just ring, and I had to put the guitar down and just sing it. Yeah, that happened to me. That happened to me on Brick Up the Mersey 2, Dave Kirby's play. That happened to me on that. And then some other actor, Drew Schofield, had to use the guitar after him. So while he's on stage, I'm trying to get the guitar off the stage, tune it, and put it back on its rack so he could play it. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Like, I have massive respect for anyone who works in theatre, because it's not like you can press a button and say, sorry about that, or start again. You're in the middle of a scene and you're in front of a live group crowd of people. So massive kudos for that. How you're able to.
Well, that's when it's a good play, it's such a great feeling after the show. When the curtains come down, you did it, and that's where you get the real gratification from theatre. Yeah,
fair dues. You've been in a couple of other plays that you've been in the Royal Court. You've been in Council Depot Blues, and you're in
Break Up the Mersey. That was the first play I did for Dave Kirby, and I always thank Dave for that, showing some, when other people went there, Dave stepped up and said, I want to work with them, and wrote me a part in Council Depot. I played drums, guitar. He just let me fly, and I'll never forget him for that. Yeah, what a guy! What a great writer!
And what was the storyline of that again?
Well, it's really about. So it's loosely based on Dave's dad. It's about a load of guys who work for the council. They empty out derelict buildings when somebody may have died or are moving, and it's what they can get out of the buildings. And so what transpires is they clean out this music teacher's house and find a mandolin, which is a Gibson. It's worth nearly £250,000, and the scam of them trying to sell it and trying to get it off another character, who then tries to rip the other character out, and it becomes a farce then of trying to get this mandolin out of the house without the other actors knowing. It's a great play, really hilariously funny, and great music as well.
And Break Up the Mersey Tunnel?
I was in the second one. I'm sort of the musical narrator who comes on with a guitar and sings what's going on. And it's about Chester, the postcode, getting their own back on the first play, and they want to blow up the tunnel rather than break it up. They want to stop Scousers from coming over and working in Chester. That's the premise of that.
I had a good laugh with you there a couple of months ago. You were in 15 Minutes That Shook the World.
Yeah.
A movie, a summary of what apparently took place at halftime in Istanbul. And the final is actually in Istanbul again this season, which is a good omen.
Yeah.
In a couple of months, which would be good. But you play a Turkish kebab shop owner wearing a red fez.
God, yeah.
And the name of the kebab shop is called White Shites Kebab. And I remember
Wild Shites Kebab, yeah.
Yeah, I remember messaging you and saying, you need to bring me to Wild Shites Kebab shop when I'm over
the road. It's not far. Where we shot it is not far from where I am. And it's a bit of fun, you know what I mean? It's a bit of laugh. I play a guy who's got hold of the halftime dressing room CCTV footage of what's actually turned Liverpool round and made them win that final. And Neil Fitzmaurice plays Rafa, and he does a great job of that. And a lot of the players involved, Stephen Gerrard's in it, Carragher's in it, There's a few plays in it, and they're quite good. So he just said to me, "Come over," and I just improvised and I made up a load of madness, and people like it. It's quite. The outtakes are the funniest with me and Drew Schofield just laughing all the way through it. So if you watch the outtakes, they're quite funny.
You do a brilliant Turkish accent in it. But when I was messaging you saying you have to bring me to the Wild Shites kebab, and you were like, "Where is that?" Like, the owner is quite nice. He's like a Tommy Cooper fan. He's got the red fez, and sometimes it might take 15 minutes or so for the food to be
longer than that.
Ready to be ready for you, So that's a very good one too. A very good movie you've been in. So 15 minutes that shook the world.
Yeah, it's a good laugh, isn't it?
I'm sure it's not 100% accurate of what took place in Istanbul, but it's a good story. It's very funny. I love the Everton. When Drew goes into the Everton pub, and Lindsay's in that scene as well.
Yeah,
and
that's the friend I mentioned before, who I watched Hillsborough with. Sean McKee's is Lindsay's husband, who sadly died a few years back now. One really, really good actor. Sean McKee, God rest his soul. He plays the Everton because he was a mad blue. He was a mad blue, Sean McKee, and so Dave thrown him in that, and I watched the Hillsborough tragedy unfold with that lad. It's crazy, isn't it? Serendipity.
That's a very good term, actually, for Liverpool, and I suppose even ourselves with the connection. So music is a big part of your life as well, Jake, isn't it? Like you love.
Yeah, I always wanted to. I had a band. That's how I got my equity card and played in a band. When we used to have a union, and I've always played instruments. I play piano and stuff. I play in the show. I play in a few other shows. I love music, and my son is now a songwriter. He's been on tour with The View, and Liam Gallagher loves him, and all. It's passing it on. Yeah, music. That's what I was saying. The city's just great for music and art. Yeah.
My dad's a musician as well. Like, and he plays accordion and that, like, so it's kind of been.
Well, that's what they say. We get it from you. They say we get the music from Ireland. That's what we say over here.
It's a generational thing.
Yes.
At Christmas at the Royal Court, you were doing a bit, weren't you, as well? Music.
Yeah, I think I was playing. Was I playing drums or
James Brown?
Guitar. Yeah, guitar. I did a bit of James Brown. Yeah.
Very good.
He was a gospel preacher. That was great fun.
Yeah. The lads, just the music. I remember you kind of know one of the lads and the lads you were saying when you were younger.
Yeah, I've known Lee Mavis, and Lee Mavis's brother is Lee Mavis's brother, Gary Mavis, who's an actor who was in Justice. He plays he's legal. He's a solicitor in that. So yeah, it stays in the family. What a great songwriter Lee Mavis is as well. Great album.
But that book, go back to the Simon Hughes book, that's called There She Goes, and I suppose it's a reference. That song, for some reason, I always associate with Ireland in the 1990 World Cup when they got to the quarterfinals, because we've kind of a sketch show reeling in the years, and it kind of shows the memories of every year it goes through. And when it shows David O'Leary's penalty in the penalty shootout in 1990 against Romania, they always play that song in it, like, so it's a lovely tune. And
great album. I love all of the songs on the album.
Simon Hughes was going to name the book Margaret Thatcher's Liverpool, but he said he was afraid people wouldn't buy it because they probably wouldn't. So change it to There She Goes.
I've probably sold a lot more because it's just the title. Because Lee Mavis, he's just that side. He told me himself that song alone is set him right up. Good for him. It's just the song itself has been used in soap commercials in Japan and all kinds of madness you wouldn't believe, but it's still a great song.
The song, I suppose, after the Toxteth Riots and that There She Goes is a reference to possibly heroin, like, coursing through my veins.
Yeah, they say that. He denies it, Lee says it isn't. There She Goes to me is Margaret Thatcher. She's gone. There she goes. Bye-bye.
But I suppose it's just another thing that could be blamed on that side was that heroin became a lot more readily available after the Toxteth riots. So they reckon it was a conspiracy.
Yeah, that's a lot of people say that. That all of a sudden it was flooded with, with drugs. This city keep them doped and quiet, and the alcohol's the same. Alcohol's a home record as well, and there's a dealer on every corner. Well, not anymore. All the pubs are closing. But yeah, that's the thing that gets said. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But let's blame that on it as well.
But you wouldn't put it past them either, though.
No, let's blame it on it. Yeah, because it's the system.
You mentioned, I suppose, just we don't need to delve too deep into this, but after Lock Stock, like everyone else, you had your own kind of problems.
Yeah, I've got my own demons. Yeah, everyone has the demons, and maybe it was a midlife crisis. I don't know, but yeah, I went through a dark spell, a dark place for a while, which I'm thankful I'm sitting here talking to you.
So am I.
I just family to thank, and the meetings and the A&A to thank, and the fellowship to thank for that, and my dad. And it can happen to actors. You see a lot of celebrity courts that type of person. Hey mate, I love that. Get that down your neck. You're tired. Yeah, but all of a sudden you find yourself, wow, and it can happen to anybody. It's not prejudice. It can take anybody at any time. So my advice to young actors maybe coming through is go home. Don't stay out of the rock. Have one drink and go home, and don't be thankful for the great business that you're working in. Believe in yourself, love yourself, and don't harm yourself.
I hope I didn't inadvertently, when the night I bought you a beer that night in the Gaiety, I hope that's an example of something you just said there.
I relapsed. No, worse than that. I'm not talking a pint. I'm talking.
Yeah. But look, I think we mentioned this in a chat the other day, was the Serenity Prayer is a prayer. Like, I'm not a religious man myself, but the words of the Serenity Prayer, I think, are
great.
So for anyone who doesn't know it, it's like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change.
Things that cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah. Which is, and then I keep coming back. You work, so work it. You're worth it, so work it. Yeah, it's been around before the whole fellowship started. It's a prayer for struggling people, for people who were just struggling and having trouble making choices, making the right choice at the right time, and that prayer is fantastic.
Well, I would have made you respect for someone like you, like that came through that, and like you're an example to people for how you can get out of it. So fair use for that.
Not the
would you say prayer kind of helped you as well, Jake? I think you kind of mentioned that before in another podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I was brought up, Catholic, but I never didn't get God. I never got the man with the beard, and I believe Jesus Christ was a prophet. Definitely, you just go with his word. The Sermon on the Mount alone should be it. Just love each other. Let's love your fellow man. Don't shout about your charities. Just care for each other. And if we all live by that, most religions are based on those principles. But I found, because the STEP program is about God and stuff. You don't have to say God. It's a God of your own understanding. So for me, it's the universe. And I love that quote. We're all part of one huge consciousness, having individual experiences as human beings. Yeah. And for me, that's my God, the universe. The universe is like this huge brain that plans everything, and
and I suppose it's kind of
plan, but sets things up for you.
Yeah, like we're only all passing through this life, like, and we're only
definitely.
I try to help people. Help people out as best you can, and
because I think we're all born with loving, caring beings, and you only have to look at children. I know children have temperament, but children are innocent. They're born with a sense of good and bad. Mm. You don't have to. You're born with that, and maybe that's where it comes from. It's mystical.
Yeah, I suppose you wouldn't necessarily, in my view, I don't think you need to go into a church every Sunday.
No,
to be,
but I love the church.
Yeah, it's better to be a good Christian than a good Catholic or whatever religion you are. I think if you treat people
yeah, and I do Sunday Christmas mass at the I just love the choir and Christmas mass at the cathedral in Liverpool, because Gothic Cathedral is just lovely. It's a nice place to be Christmas night.
Yeah, I would agree that would be a very nice time as well. Even sometimes help me sleep. The monks' music, kind of like singing and choirs, that can be quite good. Like
angelic, yeah.
Great stuff. So, does it still affect you? Do you still get tempted now and again for addiction?
No. You know, I can I'll get into ice cream in a big way, or I'll get I'll start. It can be used. The addictive personality is for drive. Can be used for drive, like learning a new instrument. You'll just get focused into it. Or I can get into baking salads, and I'll overdo baking salads, and I know what that is. I know that's the beast saying, "Fill the hole." I know that. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's no chaos, and when it can bring such chaos into your life, and that when you realize that's the focus, is the chaos, the madness, then that's when you work with the problem. So as long as you're vigilant, and I go to meetings when I feel like that, and I can go to them, feel totally refreshed. The power of more than one person, a higher power than yourself, just two people helping you, everyone helping each other, it works.
Yeah. No, and it's brilliant, especially dealing with people that are in similar situations as well. It definitely
service. Yeah.
So we're just going to speak about your dad now, Jay, because obviously he was a big influence on you, and I suppose just Jake's dad passed away in October 19. So coming up to a year and a half. He was a big influence on your life, wasn't he?
Massive legend of a man, and that's all people have said. What a legend his dad was, and he really was. Looked after us, gave us a great life. He was my dad was like a protection when he wasn't even there. In Liverpool, or it's Jake, your dad's Jake. I'd get in clubs. I'd drop his name, get in clubs and stuff. I used to drop his name years ago, and so yeah, he was. And then when he died, it was just, it really hit me. I was, because he was a hard taskmaster when he was young, only for the good of us, you know what I mean? He was, he'd tell you straight, my dad, tell you straight how it was. And then I was amazed how much it really hit me, his passing.
Yeah. He was a great boxer. And you showed me a photograph of him, and I thought it was Muhammad Ali. He was a cross between Muhammad Ali and Phil Lynott in the photograph, but more Muhammad Ali, I would say. He looked of a boxer,
Big man. And he fought, he had a catastrophic stroke, it's called, and most people would have gone a month, 17 months he was laying in a bed, and I was to watch him go through that was unbelievable, and go with dignity as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, I suppose. If someone's suffering,
and he would never let you see that. And he was
better off.
Yeah, I asked us that. You've done us proud.
Up to the end, he never lost his wit, though, did he?
We had something about this. Don't say it, but I am going to. So when he was in the hospital, and he was a guy looking after him, Jamaican guy, and I know he had an eye for my mum, this guy. So I didn't think my dad knows. So we'd take my dad out and in the hoist, and we got this big wheelchair for him, and we'd take him out in the garden. And I remember he didn't want to be there, and he was going. I was going, what? He wanted to go back in the bed. I was going, so we had to get there. So I said to this guy, listen, mate, can you get me dad back? My mother was asking him, can you get him back? And he wants to get back. And he was going, just give me 5 minutes, and I'll put him in. And my dad he vomited and something, and he was going, he was getting back, and he was going 5 minutes, and my dad went out to play. Jimmy said to me one day, "Give me 5 minutes, man." And my dad shouted, "You wouldn't be 5 minutes getting air back in bed, though, would you?"
That's a great line.
Yeah.
And that was a week after. That was his first word in a week, like, you know. So that was just
a month.
A month was it? Yes, that's brilliant.
He wouldn't speak because he was right down one side. He had no swallow. But what a fucking he looked healthy. Fucking looked healthy till the last minute.
And you're saying you brought souvenirs over from Africa.
Yeah, well, he went to find his family, didn't he? And he obviously went to Ireland. He went back to Nigeria to find his family. And this is, you know, you can look this up. This is the record. He got 5 years for importation. He brought some pot back with him, and so
it's not quite heroin, now, you know, like it's
just pot.
You know what I mean? It's going to be legalized anytime soon, I'd say. But.
Yeah. So you know, he was a man. He couldn't make any money, and he was tough for him. So you know, he went back to his family, and then so when he was I was saying he went back to his family, found his family in Africa. When he came home, he brought some souvenirs back with him, 2 boatloads of souvenirs, which was and everyone was laughing, and the police was going, "Well, why is everybody laughing?" Because all his mates wanted it, and you couldn't polish over it. It's the truth, and it's what he was. He was a go-getter. He was a maverick. He was, you know, good or bad. He was a fascinating character.
And you were saying, was it the customs and exiles were loading the weed off the boat? Is it?
Yeah, basically everybody's bribable in Nigeria. Well, they used to be, but not anymore. But everybody was bribable then. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Well, it was just interesting that you mentioned my granddad earlier, but your dad died on my granddad's birthday. He would have been 109 at the time, 2019, and it was just kind of interesting how obviously two very different men, but I suppose they both ran dance halls. One was
dance halls. Yeah, that's a strange connection, isn't it? Yeah. There's the universe again.
Yeah, I suppose you mentioned like your dad setting up the Babaloo and the timepiece, and Pat as well was back in the Babaloo years ago. She was saying, and she was very impressed by how respectful the clientele were, and that was mainly down to your dad, I'd say, because he wouldn't have handled anyone.
My dad ran 2 massive clubs in the biggest clubs in the city with 1 bouncer, and brought people together. And I remember one time in one of the clubs, there was this gang in Liverpool, and they used to use Stanley knives, slashing everybody. And they had the city terrorised. Stanley boys to the club, and they just go into clubs, take the money, slash everyone. And there was this. I was at Scousers and said, "Yo, Dad, last night the Babaloo, I believe he just went and fucking sorted these guys out." And I was like, "What?" And a long time ago after it, he never really spoke about it. And then a long time ago after, I was doing a podcast, funny enough, a radio show, and a guy and I don't know what he was doing, and he had a scar, this guy, right down his face here. And he looked like and he went, "What's your name?" "Jake Abraham." He said, "Your dad saved my life. Your dad saved my life." He was getting slashed by these guys. My dad stepped in and sorted them all out. Well, I remember doing a film with John Conti, a 3 times welterweight, middleweight champion. I think he was welterweight, middleweight. John Conti, it doesn't get enough praise, I think, for being the Liverpool world champion, English world champion 3 times. So I did a thing called Justice. He's in it. Yeah. And he went to me, "What's your name?" "Jake Abraham." I went, "Yeah." He went, "Your dad could have been, I used to box with your dad. He could have been a world champion, your dad. And he just got in the wrong crowd and just got into skullduggery." But he confirmed it for me, and I had to go, "Yes." I had to speak to see him. And, "Yeah, I spoke to John Conti, Dad. Yeah, he said."
You're quite
so
good.
I told you, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah, so he's a legend.
Yeah. And I suppose you would have had lots of different people calling around to the house and stuff for different cultures and that. And
oh, yeah.
But that's how you learned acting, wasn't it? That was how you learned.
Yeah, I forgot about that, because he said, "I got you in. We knew he was going to be an actor." And I think it's so, like, these guys are coming for, obviously, buying the weed, and they come in the house, and they'd be like Africans, Jamaicans, and I'd say, "Dad, someone knocked." And he'd go, "Who was it?" and I couldn't remember his name. It'd be Clinton Dwinton or Quasi or something, you know. And I could, so I'd do an impression of him and go, oh, that's Jamaican George, or that's African Steve, and he'd go, fucking little actor, and then my dad was yeah, go for it. So.
Well, he'd be very proud of you, man. He'd be very proud of you keeping his name alive, you know, and kind of even the other 2 podcasts you've done, you talk about him, you know. So he'd be very.
Thank you. I always give him a shout.
Yeah, no, he was.
Yeah, he's in right now, going, shut up, says me, shut up.
Yeah. You're welcome to join in there, Jake, if you want.
Yeah,
I don't have a third one on my Zoom plan. I only have the plan for 2 people, so you have to use your spirit, I'd say. But no, I don't. I hope he's at peace now, and I hope he's well. And as I said, you are doing proud, man. And the fact I never knew about him until I got to know him more. So
and is it crazy? Not crazy as well. You get a book, and then my dad's named in the book, and it's what your granddad. It's crazy, isn't it? It's meant to be some things. Thanks for that, man. Thank you.
Oh no, man, not at all. So, I've taken up half
of my life.
It's just well, you're not on an hourly rate here because I'd be under pressure. But it's been a great show, and we've a lot of material covered there. But a couple of questions have come in from the people.
All right.
Have you ever met Purple Akki? And if yes, have you got any good stories about it?
I haven't met him. I've been in his vicinity, and he's a big guy, big scary guy, and I've heard all the folklore, all the stories about him. And my son said, Dad, I've been on the Akki trail. I went, what? The Akki trail, and there's actually a trail in Liverpool with plaques where he felt such a one's muscles there, and he got caught for some lad there. And
just explain to people who don't know who Purple Akki is, because I didn't know.
So Purple Akki is this huge, and his dad apparently was an African ambassador. Who's this? And does species that is this big, so black. People call him purple, but he calls himself it as well. Apparently, you know, it's a funny thing that people call him. And he comes up to you and says, "I seen you in the gym, didn't I?" And yeah, you've been working. Can I feel your muscles? I said, I feel your muscles. And he has people taking the tops off and everything. These are big men, and he's feeling them up and all that. And then he's got one of his bail conditions was that he was not allowed to feel men's muscles or go near any gyms. Yeah. And funny enough, I forgot I have met him because I remember going to the gym on Lodge Lane gym, and we were all on. And he walked in the middle of, big fellas all. Weights getting dropped everywhere. He just walked in at full clothes, stood there watching everyone for 10 minutes. No one said a word, and he walked out. That's when I met Purple Akki. Yeah. Forgot.
I was remembering the podcast you did with Jimmy O, and I one of the highlights of that for me was when he was how he was saying how when he was in Wigan, Purple Akki, like he was wearing like a wife beat, like he was doing weights. He was wearing like a wife beater top or monkey bar and the vest and
Gold's Jimmy had Gold's Jimmy.
Yeah, and Purple Akki came up to him and was like, "Do you do weights?" He was like, "Yeah, I do." Like, and goes, "Do you mind if I feel your muscles?" And Jimmy, completely innocent, like, "Oh, if you want, like, you know, is it?" Yeah. And he was just saying. At the time, he was saying he was a bit lonely in his life and he didn't have any friends. He asked Purple Akki what he wanted to hang out like, you know.
Yeah,
he like,
go for coffee.
He was like, "No, you're right." Even Purple Akki fucked me off. Like,
yeah, he said, I can't even cup of Purple Akki yet either. I'm doing it so bad, even Akki fucked me off. He's funny, Jimmy, isn't he? Yeah. Shout out to Jimmy O.
Oh, definitely. And that was one of the first podcasts I on, but there's this guy Jeff Otterhead who's written songs about Purple Akki in his song. But
I've heard them. I think it's all right. But funny when you feel
a bit full on. But one of the stories he was saying in the prison was because he was sorry. I should have said that at the start. He was Purple Akki's next door to Purple Akki. So like his song is like "Live Next Door to Akki," like "Live Next Door to."
That's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
But he was saying that I don't know how they ended up in this situation, but these gymnasts or athletes came into Walton Nick or whatever prison they were in at the time, and Purple Akki said as part of your initiation you have to do chin-ups on the prison door. So they're like, "Oh yeah, no bother," like, and he was more than happy to give a helping hand to lift them up,
Got the lights underneath them. Let me give you the touch. Yeah.
But to literally, for everyone who's going to Liverpool, maybe best to not wear a sleeveless top just in case.
Yeah, and if a black guy asks to feel your muscles, go the other way. Yeah.
Or he'd have a good time in Newcastle, I'd say. They like their sleeveless tops. And
yeah, he's probably there now. Yeah, he's probably there now.
Probably bought a house there, I'd say. The next bit, the next part, one of the only questions that came in there was, have you ever been to the Grafton? And if so, what was the oldest granny you pulled in the Grafton?
I have been to Grafton. I went to Grafton to the under 18's disco first when I was a kid, and there was a fight with Breck Road and Kenny and all that. We were just kids. And then I went when I was old enough to go on the night, and this is terrible. I ended up going on with this girl, and I woke up the next day and was in there. So yeah, it's true. You get beer goggles in there. Yeah. So what was it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we used to go to Grafton both and cooking the grannies.
And what age was she? Roughly
75.
Going like, for an under 18 disco, that's pretty impressive. For an under 18 disco, that's impressive. Like.
Under 18-year-old grannies, we've got them in Liverpool.
That's good. One of my favourite ever Liverpool banners at a match, well, not at a match, but I've seen, was Liverpool were playing Galatasaray in Turkey, and they have the reputation for, welcome to hell and all this, and welcome to hell and all that. So Liverpool fans put up a banner in front of the Galatasaray away and saying, "Welcome to hell, my arse. If you think this is hell, you should try the Grafton on a Friday night."
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
So another question that has come in there, Jake, is who was your favourite football player growing up?
Favourite football player would have been Maradona. Although occasionally I've been mistaken for him once or twice. But as soon as we open my mouth, they get onto it. Yeah, Maradona would have been my favourite player growing up. Favourite Everton player would be Peter Reid. Favourite Liverpool player, obviously Kenny Dalglish. Yeah.
Diego is on your Maradona, or is on your Twitter.
He's on. There's a picture of it. Yeah, Nicky Holt sent it to me. A picture of Maradona, and I thought, is that me? I was fooled by it. I was thinking, what was I doing? It's such a. You go on my Twitter page, Jake Abraham 1, and you'll see this picture, and it's Maradona being hassled by. It's absolute ringer for me, especially when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I suppose Maradona would be popular enough in Ireland as well, in the sense that in the space of 5 minutes, he single-handedly managed to piss off the entire country of England twice, and it's still
single-handedly
years later. So one for the ladies, Jason Statham. What was he like to work with?
Great, Jason. Jason's. I couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. What happened to Jason? How big he is in Hollywood now? Yeah, he was always. I remember sharing cars with him and leaving his car for me, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer fella. I'm really made up for him. Really great to work with Jason. Yeah, twice I worked with him on Lock, Stock and the Machine. It was good to be back with him. Yeah. You
commentated on his excellent goalkeeping performance as well. So.
Yeah, we love the Monk. We love him, and we love Jason as well.
He was very like Bruce Grobbelaar in that crazy goalkeepers.
That's what he said. He thought based it on him. Yeah,
he didn't go to penalties, but if it did, he'd be doing the bandy legs on the goal line.
Yeah, the jelly legs.
What would you say was your favourite movie you've been in?
Favourite films, obviously, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. It was just so many good things came from it. I made lots of good friends, and it was a pleasure to be in. Yeah. It
made you a star as well. So it was a launch pad, launched a career.
Yeah, but I've been acting since I was 15. Before that, no one turns up overnight. But yeah, it gave me a great exposure, definitely.
So, and your favourite play that you've been in the theatre?
Well, obviously it's going to be You Never Walk Alone. Stopping everywhere with it. I've been to Dublin, met you, mate, and I went to Belfast with it. I must have done it 5 times at Liverpool. you know, and the club has been great with us. It's been a fantastic place to do. That would be great, and a great emotional time on stage, from just crying, laughing to crying with emotion. Yeah, amazing play.
And you're mentioning about the Christmas play you're in was quite emotional.
Yeah, well, obviously you say that your last is your best, and the last thing I did, which isn't the best, but it was just an amazing time to bond with other actors, because I've worked with them over the years. Because we did the last Christmas play at the Royal Court, and we knew we were going to go back into lockdown, and the play was all about what's going on now, and it was just an emotional. Yeah, it was amazing. It was called the Christmas selection box, which was, you know, it's a Christmas show, yeah, but the music was great, and I wrote my own piece for it. It was great. Yeah, I played this gospel preacher who thought he was James Brown. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah,
brilliant. Just before we wrap up, what does the future hold for Jacob, Joseph, Elijah, Abraham, would you say?
It's a good question, that, isn't it? Because what we're all going through, artists now feel like there's no future. There's a lot of mental health issues, and my heart goes out to anyone who's suffering from that right now. And I just trying to say to people that it's not your mental health, it's the place and the situation we're all in right now is exacerbating things, and it's probably just that. So there is a future, and for me is work. I want to work acting. I want to get into some more music, and we're planning on doing the play. So just more work, and I've got a little thing in the pipeline I'm crossing my fingers about. There's a big job. So basically, and then back at the Royal Court. So yeah. If it goes on any longer, I'll probably end up getting a normal job. So hopefully, maybe that'll be good for me. I don't know. But yeah, work, and I want to do a bit of writing, and I'm going to write my dad's story. So
well, that's cool. And that would be a book I would very gladly buy and even help out with if you wanted to. Look, I suppose just doing the podcast, I suppose it's good to I know it's good to talk with this stuff to show how much you are appreciated as well, because like your work is very much appreciated, like, you know, and obviously
thanks,
big fan. You've like, as I said, we mentioned above, the Lock Stock, a film I regularly watch just for those scenes, and the Liverpool musical and that, and as I said, how partner I was. So you definitely have a lot to offer any future directors and all that. And I mentioned to you, and I suppose we'll just say it, and for anyone who's watching this who's in the arts game, there's a website, patreon.com, where comedians and I think comedian, that could be a route you could go down at some stage. I think you mentioned you're on with before doing.
I've always had it's terrifying though, but I've always had it. If anyone's out there, right? Okay, if anyone's out there who watches this, but it's one person might say, I can help him with that. So at one point I've got ideas for a stand-up, and I would like someone who could sort of a coach who've done before. Maybe I'd look at that. I'd do that. And anyway, I feel like my best work is yet to come.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think that there definitely is more potential. Even the roles you have had, there's potential for more in those.
Yeah, I've learned so much along the way. Yeah.
Patreon.com, setting up an account, and that could be good, because you can put videos, monologues of yourself and stuff like that. So good. So if we can have a chat about that, I can help you.
Or maybe helping younger actors would be great. Yeah. Good.
What advice would you give younger actors?
Stay in the moment. Believe in yourself. Know your lines. Turn up. Enjoy it.
Muffle through them at the exact time I'm in to sing a song, like, you know, like me. But...
No, it is what I'd say is that know that you're there, because you sometimes actors feel like they're lucky. A lot of actors feel like they're lucky. It's not luck. You got the job before hundreds, maybe thousands. You're good enough, and a lot of actors have problems with the self thing. You wouldn't believe this, but a lot of them do, and because you're out there, you're exposing yourself. So love yourself, love your work, and believe you're there because you deserve it.
And first, just finally, on the last question I was going to ask, for someone who wants to get into acting, someone who actually wants to get into it and wants to break into the industry, it's not the best time, admittedly. But what would you advise?
I would, if you're, there's two routes. You can obviously go to drama school, or if you don't want to commit that much, I would join a theatre company, maybe a amateur theatre company. See if you like it, then follow through, try and get an agent. But yeah, amateur dramatists, there's lots of them now, and there's loads of courses online. If you want to do it now, there's courses online, and then drama school. Decent, good agents, fight for a good agent, and good luck.
Great stuff. So that's my podcasting cherry popped. How was it for you, Jay?
Wait a minute. Wasn't all that, you know.
There's room for improvement. There definitely is. But look,
Did you arrive, darling? Yeah.
No, look,
great, you know, I loved it. It was great. We've been here for it, you know, brilliant.
Yeah, and look, we'll thank you again for your time, and I suppose I'm hoping to. I've big plans for other people coming on in the future as well, so we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. Watch this space. I'm sure you'll
watch this space. We'll develop as things go on. But I'd just like to thank everyone who's been supportive to me in the weeks leading up to this. I've got great words of encouragement. I'd like to thank Jill as well for randomly just saying go on to Zoom there at 2:00 in the morning, just test the sound and stuff. And
hi, Jill.
Yeah. And listen, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a million for your time this evening, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on as your first guest. I'm sure this will be a good success for you, and you'll go from strength to strength. Take care, mate. Thanks for having me.
Watch this space, and we'll see you. Same bat time, same bat channel on the Parlay with Padraig podcast.
Thanks,